Welcome back to our exploration of what would happen if Goku got a complete do-over with all his cosmic knowledge intact. In Part 1, we saw baby Goku wake up in that crashed Saiyan pod with the mind of a universal-level warrior trapped in an infant's body. Now things are about to get really interesting. 5 years have passed, and our reborn Saiyan has been playing the ultimate long game, pretending to learn martial arts while actually relearning how to control god-tier power in a kid's body. But you know how it is in the Dragon Ball universe. You can't keep that kind of energy hidden forever. What starts as careful training with Grandpa Gohan quickly spirals into encounters with aliens who definitely weren't supposed to show up this early. And when beings from other timelines start taking notice of Earth's anomalous energy readings, Goku faces a choice that will echo across multiple realities. This is where our cosmic chess game really begins, and trust me, the stakes are about to get way bigger than anyone expected. 5 years had passed since Goku's rebirth, and in that time, the small house on Mount Paozu had become the epicenter of phenomena that defied rational explanation. The aurora-like lights that danced above the mountain peaks had become so common that local weather services had stopped trying to explain them. Migrating animals consistently altered their routes to avoid the area, sensing something that human instruments couldn't detect. Most telling of all, every martial artist within a 1,000-kilometer radius reported strange dreams, visions of a golden warrior whose power seemed to transcend the very concept of limitation. Goku sat in the lotus position beneath the ancient pine tree where he had trained in his original childhood, his 5-year-old body maintaining perfect stillness while his mind wrestled with frustrations that would have driven lesser beings to madness. To any observer, he appeared to be a remarkably disciplined child practicing basic meditation. In reality, he was performing one of the most complex energy regulation techniques ever developed, constantly adjusting the flow of power through his growing body to prevent catastrophic release. Another growth spurt he noted as he felt his key pathways expanding to accommodate his developing physique. My body can now safely contain approximately 0.003% of my true power. At this rate, I'll need 47 more years to reach full integration. The mathematics were both encouraging and terrifying. Each day brought slightly better control, but also attracted incrementally more attention from forces that were beginning to recognize patterns in Earth's anomalous energy readings. The alien scouts had graduated from simple observation to active infiltration, with at least 12 different species now maintaining hidden bases in Earth's outer atmosphere. Goku, Grandpa Gohan's voice carried across the training ground, warm with the pride that never failed to make Goku's heart ache. Your stance is perfect, but remember, martial arts isn't just about physical position. It's about the harmony between mind, body, and spirit. If only you knew, Goku thought as he opened his eyes and smiled at his adoptive grandfather. My mind contains the accumulated knowledge of gods, my body is a prison barely containing universal-level power, and my spirit has been forged in battles that reshaped reality itself. Yes, Grandpa, he called back, his voice carrying the enthusiasm that came naturally despite his internal struggles. Even with all his cosmic experience, he genuinely enjoyed these training sessions. They reminded him of simpler times, when growing stronger was about personal achievement rather than universal responsibility. Gohan approached with the measured gait of someone whose every movement was a martial arts lesson. Over the past 5 years, the old master had grown more puzzled by his adopted grandson's development. Goku learned techniques with an intuitive grasp that suggested deep familiarity rather than discovery. His form was always perfect, his breathing always optimal, his ki control always precisely calibrated for his apparent skill level. "Let's work on the Kamehameha wave today," Gohan announced, settling into his teaching stance. "I think you're ready for the basic principles." Goku's heart skipped a beat. The Kamehameha, his signature technique, refined through decades of combat into something that could erase galaxies if he wasn't careful. He had hoped to delay this particular lesson, knowing that his muscle memory would make it almost impossible to fake ignorance convincingly. "Ka," Gohan began, his hands moving into the familiar preparation stance. "Don't complete it," Goku warned himself desperately. Even a basic Kamehameha performed with proper technique would level half the mountain range. "Me," the old master continued, energy beginning to gather between his palms. Goku could feel the ki building, a tiny fraction of what he was capable of, but still impressive for Earth standards. Focus on making mistakes, appear clumsy, show the learning process that a normal child would experience. Gohan's energy reached its peak, a softball-sized orb of blue light that pulsed with contained power. Me, Goku mimicked, deliberately allowing his energy to fluctuate wildly. To his adoptive grandfather, it would look like a child struggling to control new power. In reality, he was performing precise calculations to ensure his mistake didn't accidentally vaporize anything important. They both released their waves simultaneously. Gohan's Kamehameha struck the target rock with perfect accuracy, splitting it cleanly in half. Goku's deliberately imperfect version went wide, striking a tree branch and causing a small explosion that looked impressive but was actually the result of extraordinary restraint. Very good for a first attempt, Gohan praised, but his eyes showed the confusion that had been growing stronger each training session. Your energy control is unusual for someone your age. Most children can barely maintain a key flame, but you're already working with focused beams. I guess I'm a fast learner, Goku offered, internally cringing at how thin that excuse was becoming. His rapid progress was starting to attract attention beyond just his grandfather's notice. Traveling martial artists who passed through the area spoke of rumors about a child prodigy living on Mount Paozu. Worse, some of those visitors carried technology that clearly wasn't terrestrial. Indeed you are, Gohan murmured, then paused as if making a difficult decision. Goku, there's something I need to show you. Something I've been waiting until you were old enough to understand. The old master walked to a seemingly random spot near the house and began digging with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, he had unearthed a metal container that Goku's enhanced senses immediately identified as being far older than it appeared. The energy signature was familiar, not human, but not quite alien either. Something that existed in the spaces between worlds. This has been in my family for generations, Gohan explained as he opened the container. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was the 4-star Dragon Ball. Goku's breath caught in his throat. In his original timeline, he hadn't encountered this particular Dragon Ball until after Gohan's death. Seeing it now, held in his grandfather's living hands, created an emotional resonance that threatened to overwhelm his careful control. It's beautiful, he whispered, and meant it. Even knowing what the Dragon Balls were capable of, seeing one again after his rebirth stirred memories of wonder and adventure that transcended his cosmic experiences. Beautiful, yes, Gohan agreed, but also dangerous. This is one of 7 artifacts that, when gathered together, can grant any wish. I've kept it hidden because such power attracts the attention of those who would use it for evil purposes. If only you knew how right you are, Goku thought, and how inadequate evil purposes is as a description of what's coming. Can I touch it? He asked, genuinely curious about how his reborn soul would react to direct contact with Shenron's power. Gohan hesitated, then nodded slowly. Briefly, but be careful, these artifacts are known to react strangely to unusual key signatures. The moment Goku's fingers made contact with the 4-star ball's smooth surface, reality exploded around him. He found himself standing in a vast cosmic space, surrounded by swirling galaxies and stellar phenomena that defied description. Before him coiled a dragon of impossible proportions, not Shenron, but Super Shenron himself, the eternal dragon whose power spanned all realities. Fascinating, the cosmic entity rumbled, its voice carrying the weight of infinite universes. A soul that has touched divinity, reborn into mortality, creating ripples across the dimensional substrate. Super Shenron, Goku breathed, bowing with genuine respect. You know what I am. I know what you were. I know what you are becoming. And I know the consequences of your rebirth that even you do not yet comprehend. The dragon's massive form shifted, and suddenly Goku could see projections of multiple timelines streaming around them like cosmic rivers. In some, Earth was a barren wasteland. In others, it had become the capital of a galactic empire. In still others, it simply wasn't, as if it had been erased from existence entirely. The temporal echoes of your rebirth have created convergence points, Super Shenron continued. Realities that should never meet are now aware of each other. Enemies who died in one timeline live in another. Allies who survived great battles have fallen to different fates. What does that mean for Earth? Goku asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. It means that the threats coming for this world will not be the ones you remember. Some will be stronger, having learned from defeats that happened to their alternate selves. Others will be weaker, having never faced the challenges that forged them. And some, the dragon paused, its cosmic gaze focusing on something beyond Goku's perception. Some will be entirely new, born from the chaos of merging timelines. Then I need to be ready for anything, Goku said, his resolve strengthening. I can't just rely on knowing what happened before. Indeed. But understand this, Saiyan who was once called Kakarot, your rebirth was not random. The Grand Zano's decision was made in response to a threat that transcends individual timelines. You have been given this chance because the multiverse itself may depend on your growth. Before Goku could ask what that meant, the vision shattered like glass, and he found himself back on Mount Paozu with his hand still touching the 4-star ball. But only seconds had passed in the real world. Gohan was still watching him with concern, unaware of the cosmic conversation that had just taken place. "Are you all right?" his grandfather asked. "You looked distant for a moment." "I'm fine," Goku lied, carefully removing his hand from the Dragon Ball. It just felt warm, but he wasn't fine. Super Shenron's warning had confirmed his worst fears. The timeline changes were accelerating, and enemies were already adapting to new information. The careful preparations he had been making might not be enough. As if summoned by his thoughts, a new key signature appeared at the edge of his perception. Someone powerful was approaching Mount Paozu, moving with the confident stride of a martial arts master. Goku's enhanced senses identified the energy pattern immediately, even though the timing was completely wrong. Master Roshi was coming, 3 years earlier than he should have been. "Grandpa," Goku said carefully, "someone's coming." "Someone strong?" Gohan's expression shifted to alert caution as he quickly reburied the Dragon Ball. "How can you tell? I don't sense anything yet." "Because I fought alongside that particular turtle hermit against gods and monsters," Goku thought. "Because I know his key signature better than my own heartbeat. I just feel it," he said instead. "Like when the weather's about to change, but different." The old master closed his eyes and extended his senses, then opened them with surprise. "You're right, and whoever it is, they're not trying to hide their approach. That suggests either great confidence or Master Roshi of Turtle Hermit Island." A familiar voice called out as the legendary martial artist emerged from the forest. "I've come seeking the source of the energy disturbances that have been reported in this area." Goku's heart clenched as he saw his old teacher again. The Turtle Hermit looked exactly as he remembered: sunglasses, orange gi, walking stick, and the barely contained power of someone who had once been the strongest human alive. But there was something different in his posture, a tension that suggested he was here on business rather than casual investigation. "Master Roshi," Gohan replied formally, bowing with the respect due to a legendary fighter. "What brings the great Turtle Hermit to our humble mountain?" "Reports," Roshi said bluntly, his usual perverted humor notably absent. "Every Kai-sensitive person within 500 kilometers has been having the same dreams. Visions of incredible power centered on this location. And frankly, some very concerning individuals have been asking questions about those reports." He knows, Goku realized. Maybe not everything, but he knows something unprecedented is happening here. Roshi's gaze fell on Goku, and the child felt those experienced eyes analyzing him with uncomfortable intensity. "And you must be the boy I've been hearing about, the prodigy who's been learning martial arts at an impossible rate." "I'm Goku," he replied with manufactured enthusiasm. "Grandpa's been teaching me to fight." "Has he now?" Roshi's voice was carefully neutral, but Goku caught the subtle shift in his ki that indicated heightened alertness. "Would you mind showing me what you've learned, young man?" This was the test. Goku knew that Roshi's request wasn't casual curiosity. The master was looking for specific signs, trying to determine if the boy in front of him was the source of the energy anomalies. Show too little skill, and he might lose the opportunity to learn from one of Earth's greatest teachers. Show too much, and he would confirm suspicions that were already growing too dangerous. "I'd love to," Goku said, settling into a basic fighting stance that was perfect in every detail while appearing to be simply well-learned. For the next hour, he put on perhaps the most difficult performance of either of his lifetimes. Every movement had to suggest natural talent without revealing impossible experience. Every technique had to show promise without demonstrating mastery. Most challenging of all, he had to appear excited about abilities that felt as mundane as breathing. Roshi watched it all with the analytical precision of someone who had trained students for centuries. Several times, Goku caught flickers of surprise crossing the master's face, moments when his performance had revealed more skill than a child his age should possess. "Remarkable," Roshi finally pronounced. "Your grandson shows exceptional promise, Gohan. His form is nearly flawless and his ki control is, well, let's just say I've seen adult students with less natural ability." "He is quite gifted," Gohan agreed, pride and worry warring in his voice. Perhaps too gifted. Sometimes I wonder if he's learning too fast for his own good. You have no idea, Goku thought. Which brings me to why I'm really here, Roshi said, his expression growing serious. Gohan, old friend, I believe your grandson may be in danger. The energy signatures emanating from this area have attracted attention from sources that aren't terrestrial. I've detected at least 3 different alien reconnaissance teams conducting surveillance of Earth, and they all seem focused on Mount Paozu. The confirmation of what Goku already knew still sent a chill through him. His careful concealment hadn't been as successful as he'd hoped. What kind of attention? Gohan asked, his hand instinctively moving to where he had buried the Dragon Ball. The kind that sees unusual power as either a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be captured, Roshi replied grimly. I've taken the liberty of establishing some defensive measures around the area, but they won't hold against a determined assault if these beings decide to investigate more directly. He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood the implications. What do you suggest? Gohan asked. Training, Roshi said immediately. Accelerated, intensive training. Your grandson's natural abilities suggest he could become powerful enough to protect himself, given proper instruction. But it would mean leaving the peaceful life you've built here. Goku held his breath. In his original timeline, he hadn't met Master Roshi until after Grandpa Gohan's death. This early meeting could change everything, but only if he could convince them both that accelerated training was necessary without revealing why he knew it was urgent. I want to get stronger, he said, letting genuine emotion color his voice. I want to protect Grandpa and everyone else who might be in danger. Both adults looked at him with surprise at the mature sentiment, but Roshi nodded approvingly. Spoken like a true martial artist. Very well, then. Gohan, would you trust me to take your grandson as a student? I can offer him training that will prepare him for challenges that normal education never could. Gohan looked torn, clearly recognizing the opportunity while fearing for his grandson's safety. The decision should be Goku's, he said finally. He's the one who would be leaving everything familiar behind. All eyes turned to Goku, and he felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him. This was a crucial moment. His choice here would ripple forward through everything that followed. I want to train with Master Roshi, he said firmly, but I want to stay close enough to visit Grandpa regularly. Family is important too. Wisely spoken, Roshi approved. Very well, we'll establish a training schedule that allows for both intensive instruction and regular returns home. But understand, young Goku, the path of a martial artist is not easy. It requires dedication, sacrifice, and the willingness to face challenges that will test everything you believe about yourself. If only you knew how much I've already sacrificed, Goku thought. If only you knew what I've already faced. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, the 3 of them finalized the arrangements for Goku's expanded training. But even as they talked about schedules and techniques, Goku's enhanced senses detected new movement in the forest around them. More watchers, more scouts, more evidence that his presence on Earth was drawing exactly the kind of attention he had hoped to avoid. The soul echo effect was intensifying, and with it, the countdown to conflicts he might not be able to control through knowledge alone. His second chance was rapidly becoming his greatest challenge yet. But as he watched Grandpa Gohan laugh at one of Master Roshi's jokes, Goku allowed himself a moment of hope. This time, he wouldn't lose his family to his own ignorance. This time, he would be ready for whatever came through the darkness between stars, even if it meant facing enemies he had never encountered before. The weight of memories pressed against his consciousness like a physical force. But for the first time in 5 years, it felt less like a burden and more like preparation. The prodigy's path was about to become something far more dangerous than anyone suspected. His second genesis was accelerating. 6 months had passed since Goku began his training under Master Roshi, and Kame House had become the stage for perhaps the most unusual education in Earth's history. To any observer, it appeared to be a simple case of 2 young students learning martial arts from a legendary master. In reality, it was a delicate performance where Goku had to constantly balance his cosmic knowledge against the need to appear like a talented but still learning child. Again, Master Roshi barked, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of teaching experience. The Kamehameha wave requires perfect harmony between mind, body, and spirit. Krillin, your stance is improving, but your energy flow is still erratic. Goku, your form is excellent, but I sense you're holding something back. If only you knew how much, Goku thought as he reset his position alongside his training partner. Krillin had grown significantly stronger since beginning their shared instruction, but watching his best friend struggle with techniques that felt as natural as breathing created a constant ache in Goku's chest. The bald monk's determination and loyalty were exactly as Goku remembered, but experiencing them again from this perspective added layers of appreciation he had never fully grasped in his original timeline. Ka, me, ha. Me, both students began the familiar sequence, their voices synchronized through months of practice. For Krillin, the technique represented the cutting edge of his abilities, a culmination of intense training and spiritual discipline. For Goku, it was an exercise in restraint so precise it bordered on torture. Every fiber of his being wanted to unleash the full power he was capable of, to show the true potential of the technique that had become his signature across multiple universes. Instead, he carefully modulated his energy output to produce a beam that appeared impressive for a student while containing only the tiniest fraction of his true strength. Ha! Both waves launched simultaneously. Krillin struck the target rock dead center, creating a satisfying explosion that left him grinning with pride. Goku's deliberately imperfect attempt went slightly wide, striking the water and creating a spectacular geyser that looked more powerful than it actually was. Excellent progress, both of you, Roshi nodded approvingly, but his eyes lingered on Goku with that analytical intensity that had become all too familiar. Krillin, your accuracy is improving dramatically. Goku, your power control shows remarkable sophistication for someone your age. Thanks, Master, Goku replied with manufactured enthusiasm, internally cataloging the subtle ways his teacher's suspicions continued to grow. Roshi was far more perceptive than most people realized, and 6 months of observation had given him plenty of data to analyze. The training session was interrupted by the distinctive hum of Roshi's communication equipment, a device that supposedly connected him to other martial arts masters around the world, but which Goku's enhanced senses identified as being considerably more advanced than terrestrial technology would allow. Master Roshi, a voice crackled through the speaker, distorted by what sounded like atmospheric interference. We've detected significant changes in the energy patterns you've been monitoring. The anomalous readings are spreading beyond their original epicenter. Goku's blood ran cold as he recognized the implications. The soul echo effect wasn't just attracting attention anymore, it was actively expanding, creating ripples that would be detectable from increasingly greater distances. How significant? Roshi asked, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by professional concern. Satellite analysis suggests the disturbance field has tripled in size over the past month. More concerning, we're detecting response patterns from off-world sources. At least 4 different alien reconnaissance groups have adjusted their surveillance parameters to account for the expanded readings. 4 different groups, Goku thought grimly. That's worse than I expected. The timeline changes are accelerating faster than I anticipated. Understood, Roshi replied. Continue monitoring and report any significant developments immediately. As the communication ended, both students looked at their master with obvious questions, but it was Krillin who spoke first. Master, what was that about? Alien surveillance, energy disturbances, Roshi sighed, suddenly looking every one of his centuries. Boys, I'm afraid the world is more complicated than it appears. Earth has always attracted attention from external sources, but recently that attention has intensified dramatically. Something is happening that has cosmic implications, and unfortunately, it seems to be centered around our general area. Around me, Goku corrected silently. It's centered around me, and everyone I care about is going to pay the price for my existence. What kind of attention? Krillin pressed, his expression showing the concern of someone who had grown up in a temple and understood that spiritual matters often had practical consequences. The kind that views unusual power as either a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited, Roshi said grimly. Which is why your training has become more urgent than I initially anticipated. You both show exceptional potential, but potential means nothing if you can't survive long enough to develop it. Before either student could respond, a new alarm began sounding from Roshi's communication system, this one urgent and continuous. The master rushed to his equipment, his face growing pale as he read the incoming data. What is it? Goku asked, though his enhanced senses were already picking up the answer. Multiple key signatures were approaching from different directions, moving with the coordinated precision of a planned assault. We're about to have visitors, Roshi said tersely. and they're not the social type. Boys, this is about to become a very practical lesson in combat application. Stay behind me and be ready for anything. Through the walls of Kame House, Goku could sense the approaching enemies with crystal clarity. 7 distinct signatures, each one carrying technology that registered as significantly more advanced than anything Earth could produce. But more disturbing than their equipment was the familiarity of their energy patterns. These weren't random scouts or opportunistic raiders. These were professionals who had been given specific intelligence about their targets. The first enemy materialized through the front wall of Kame House without bothering to use the door, a humanoid figure in advanced combat armor that shimmered with energy fields. His skin was the distinctive gray-blue of the Frieza Force's outer colonies, and the scouter attached to his face was scanning continuously. "Turtle Hermit," the intruder announced in accented but fluent Earth language, "you will surrender the anomalous energy source for collection and processing. Resistance will result in the elimination of this facility and all personnel." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Roshi replied calmly, his ki beginning to rise as he prepared for combat. "Mostly because I have no idea what you're talking about." The alien scouter beeped rapidly as it focused on each person in the room. Adult human, power level 139, acceptable baseline. Young human, power level 97, above average but unremarkable. The device focused on Goku and the beeping became frantic. Young human, power level, error, recalibrating. Unknown energy signature detected. There's no hiding it now, Goku realized. Whatever these scouters are designed for, they're specifically built to detect the kind of energy signatures my rebirth has created. Fascinating, the alien continued, his attention now completely focused on Goku. Subject matches physical parameters from the intelligence reports. Energy signature confirms identity as temporal anomaly designation, Genesis Prime. The blood in Goku's veins turned to ice. They knew, somehow impossibly, these enemies had been given specific information about his reincarnation. This wasn't a random investigation, it was a targeted extraction mission. "Master," he whispered urgently, "they're here for me specifically. This is my fault." "Explanations later," Roshi replied grimly. "Combat now. Krillin, implement defensive formation Beta-7. Goku, stay close and follow my lead." The battle erupted with the sudden violence of a lightning strike. The lead alien lunged forward with speed that would have been invisible to normal humans, but Roshi intercepted him with the fluid grace of a true master. Their clash sent shockwaves through the small house, and Goku realized with growing alarm that this enemy was significantly stronger than the scouts they had encountered previously. 2 more aliens materialized through the walls, their advanced technology allowing them to phase through solid matter as if it didn't exist. Krillin engaged one with admirable courage, but it was immediately obvious that he was outclassed. The enemy's armor absorbed his attacks while their return strikes sent the young monk flying across the room. "I have to help," Goku thought desperately, "but how much can I reveal without making everything worse?" The decision was made for him when a 4th alien appeared directly behind him, energy blade extended to strike a killing blow. Instinct and muscle memory took over, and Goku moved with speed that should have been impossible for his apparent skill level. He deflected the blade, struck 3 pressure points that would temporarily paralyze his attacker, and redirected the alien's momentum to send him crashing into the far wall, all in the space of a single heartbeat. The room went silent except for the groaning of the defeated enemy. Everyone, allies and remaining enemies alike, stared at Goku with expressions ranging from shock to dawning recognition. "Impossible," breathed the lead alien, his scouter now producing a steady whine of overload warnings. "Combat efficiency and technique mastery inconsistent with apparent age and training level. Subject demonstrates knowledge of pressure point techniques that are classified above level 7 clearance." Level 7 clearance, Goku realized with growing dread, that's Frieza Force terminology. These aren't independent raiders, they're working for someone with access to Empire intelligence databases. Master Roshi recovered from his surprise first, using the momentary distraction to launch a Kamehameha wave that sent 2 more enemies through the wall and into the ocean beyond. But his eyes never left Goku, and the questions burning in his gaze were impossible to ignore. "Kid," he said quietly, not breaking combat stance, "we need to have a very serious conversation when this is over." The remaining aliens regrouped with professional efficiency, their leader speaking rapidly into a communication device. "Base command, intelligence confirmed. Subject exhibits combat capabilities consistent with Saiyan elite classification despite apparent youth, requesting immediate backup and authorized escalation to Extraction Protocol 7. Extraction Protocol 7, Goku's memory supplied helpfully. Planet-wide surveillance, civilian population monitoring, and authorization to use city-destroying weapons if necessary to secure the target. "We need to leave," he said urgently. "Now. They're calling for reinforcements that will put everyone on Earth at risk." "How do you know that?" Krillin demanded, blood trickling from a cut above his eye but his expression more confused than afraid. Before Goku could answer, the lead alien scouter began receiving an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged from the device was electronically distorted, but carried an unmistakable authority. "Extraction Team 7, this is forward command. Intelligence analysis indicates your target possesses combat knowledge and energy signatures consistent with subject classification, reincarnated warrior. Terminate secondary personnel and extract primary target for immediate transport to Frieza Planet 419. The alien commander's posture straightened with military precision. "Understood, Command. Initiating termination protocol for non-essential personnel." Energy beams lanced across the room as the remaining enemies opened fire on Master Roshi and Krillin. Goku's body moved before his mind could fully process the threat, interposing himself between the attacks and his friends with speed that bent the laws of physics. The energy beams struck him directly, and for a moment everyone expected to see a small child vaporized by military-grade weapons. Instead, Goku stood completely unharmed, his body having automatically shifted into a defensive configuration that dispersed the energy harmlessly. The technique was so advanced that even he was surprised by its unconscious activation. His reborn soul had developed protective reflexes that operated below the level of conscious thought. "Impossible," the alien commander whispered, his scouter now smoking from overload. "Energy absorption and redistribution at master-class efficiency. Combat reflexes indicating experience with planet-killer-level weaponry." His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Command requesting immediate strategic withdrawal. Subject appears to be." He never finished the sentence. In the space between heartbeats, Goku had closed the distance between them and delivered a precisely calculated strike that shut down the alien's nervous system without causing permanent damage. But as the enemy collapsed, his scouter managed to transmit one final message. "Alert all stations, the Saiyan lives and he remembers." The silence that followed was deafening. Master Roshi and Krillin stared at Goku with expressions of complete bewilderment, while the unconscious aliens served as mute testimony to capabilities that no 6-year-old should possess. "Saiyan," Krillin whispered. "Goku, what did he mean by that?" Goku's mind raced through possible explanations, each one more inadequate than the last. The truth was impossible to believe, but lies would only make things worse when more enemies arrived with better intelligence. He began, then stopped as he realized the magnitude of what had just been revealed. Not just his identity as a Saiyan, but specific knowledge of his reincarnated status. Someone somewhere had detailed information about his rebirth and had shared it with forces that wanted him captured. "The transmission," Master Roshi said grimly, examining the alien communication equipment. "It went out on a frequency that will reach deep space within hours. Whatever organization these soldiers represent, they now know exactly where to find you." "Then we can't stay here," Goku said, his strategic mind automatically shifting into crisis management mode. "They mentioned Frieza Planet 419, which means this is connected to the Frieza Force. When they don't report back, the next wave will be significantly more dangerous." Both of his companions stared at him with growing amazement. "How do you know about Frieza Force designations?" Roshi asked carefully. "That's intelligence that even Earth's most advanced monitoring systems don't possess." Before Goku could formulate an answer that wouldn't sound insane, his enhanced senses detected a new threat approaching, but this one was different. Instead of the hostile energy signatures of more aliens, he sensed something familiar yet wrong. A key pattern he recognized, but twisted in ways that made his blood run cold. "Someone else is coming," he announced. "And this one knows me personally." Through the destroyed wall of Kame House stepped a figure that should have been impossible, Emperor Pilaf, but not the bumbling would-be conqueror from Goku's original timeline. This version moved with confident precision, wore armor that incorporated clearly alien technology, and carried himself with the bearing of someone who had found real power rather than merely dreaming of it. Well, well, Pilaf said, his voice carrying none of the whining petulance Goku remembered. The mysterious energy source that's been causing such interesting disturbances throughout the galaxy. When my off-world contacts told me about a temporal anomaly on Earth, I never imagined it would be a Saiyan child. Pilaf, Goku breathed, recognizing the name even though everything else about the diminutive emperor had changed. You know me? Pilaf's eyes glittered with satisfaction. How interesting. According to my intelligence sources, you shouldn't exist at all. The Saiyans were exterminated years ago, and yet here you are not just alive but carrying energy signatures that suggest impossible power levels. Intelligence sources, Master Roshi interjected, positioning himself protectively in front of both students. Who exactly have you been talking to, Pilaf? Oh, various interested parties, Pilaf replied casually, gesturing to the unconscious aliens. The Frieza Force, naturally, they're very concerned about reports of surviving Saiyans. The Jinyu Force has also expressed interest, particularly after some rather unusual energy readings started appearing on their long-range scanners. His smile widened unpleasantly. But most interestingly, I've been contacted by someone who claims to know this particular Saiyan personally. Someone who died fighting him, but apparently got better. The blood in Goku's veins turned to liquid nitrogen. Who? He whispered, though part of him already knew the answer. Perfect Cell, Pilaf announced with malicious glee. From timeline designation Gamma-7, where he successfully absorbed both Android 17 and 18 before traveling back in time. He's very eager to meet the Saiyan who supposedly defeated his alternate self, especially since he's had years to prepare for the encounter. Perfect Cell from an alternate timeline, Goku's mind raced through the implications. One who knows about my previous existence and has been given time to prepare countermeasures. This is exactly the kind of threat Super Shenron warned me about. You're working with Cell? Krillin demanded, his voice shaking with anger. Pilaf, that monster will destroy everything. Only if I don't give him what he wants, Pilaf replied smoothly. The deal is quite simple. I deliver the anomalous Saiyan, and he provides me with technology that will make me the undisputed ruler of Earth. Everyone wins, except for the part where Cell is lying and will kill you the moment you're no longer useful, Goku pointed out. Pilaf's confident expression flickered for just a moment. How would you know that? You're just a child. Because I've fought him before, Goku said quietly, making a decision that would change everything. In another life, in another timeline, I've seen what Perfect Cell is capable of. He doesn't make deals, he makes temporary alliances until he can eliminate everyone who might threaten him. The admission hung in the air like a physical weight. Master Roshi's eyes widened with something approaching comprehension, while Krillin looked between his friend and their enemies with growing confusion. Another timeline, Pilaf mused. How fascinating. My off-world contacts suggested something like that might be possible, but to hear it confirmed, his expression hardened. All the more reason to hand you over to people who understand these things better than I do. The Emperor raised a device that looked like a fusion of Earth technology and alien engineering. This will emit a localized energy pulse that should temporarily disable your apparently impressive abilities. Don't worry, my clients want you alive and functional, so it won't cause permanent damage. Before he could activate the device, Goku made another split-second decision. Moving faster than anyone present could follow, he crossed the room and gently touched Pilaf's forehead with one finger. The Emperor froze in place, his eyes widening as Goku used a technique he had learned from Elder Kai, the ability to share memories directly. In the space of a heartbeat, Pilaf experienced a condensed version of Goku's previous timeline, the battles, the losses, the ultimate sacrifice that had led to his rebirth. Most importantly, he saw what Perfect Cell was truly capable of when given free rein. When the memory transfer ended, Pilaf staggered backward, his face pale with horror. That was real. All of it, every moment, Goku confirmed sadly. Including what Cell will do to you the moment he decides you're no longer useful. I've seen it happen to better people than either of us. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the sound of waves against the destroyed remains of Kame House. Then Pilaf slowly lowered his weapon, his hands shaking with the magnitude of what he had experienced. The Dragon Balls, he whispered, you know where they all are. Yes, Goku admitted. But I also know what happens when people use them for the wrong reasons. The wish always comes with a price. What's he talking about? Krillin demanded, looking between Goku and Pilaf with growing frustration. Dragon Balls. Other timelines? Goku, what's going on? Before Goku could explain, his enhanced senses detected multiple new key signatures approaching from different directions. The reinforcements the aliens had called for were arriving, and they were bringing significantly more firepower than the first wave. "We need to leave," he announced urgently. "Now, and we need to gather the Dragon Balls before Cell's forces can locate them." "Why?" Master Roshi asked, though he was already moving to gather essential supplies. "Because," Goku said grimly, "I'm going to do something I swore I'd never do again. I'm going to make a wish that could change the fate of the entire universe." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth was more complex. The Dragon Balls represented power, and power inevitably attracted attention from forces that viewed it as either a tool or a threat. By seeking them out, he would be accelerating the very conflicts he had hoped to avoid. The choice was no longer between revealing his true nature and maintaining his secret. The choice was between acting on the knowledge he possessed and watching everyone he cared about pay the price for his hesitation. As they fled the ruins of Kame House with enemies closing in from all directions, Goku made a silent vow. This time, he would not lose his family to forces beyond his control. This time, he would be ready for whatever came through the darkness between stars, even if it meant facing perfect Cell 3 decades early, even if it meant revealing truths that would change everything. His second Genesis was about to become a war across multiple timelines, and the stakes had just escalated beyond anything he had experienced before. The hunt for the Dragon Balls had begun. The ruins of Kame House disappeared behind them as Master Roshi's emergency aircraft carried them across the darkening ocean. But the sense of pursuit followed like a shadow. Goku sat in the co-pilot's seat, his enhanced senses tracking multiple energy signatures converging on their former location, while his mind raced through increasingly grim calculations. 14 different alien vessels entering Earth's atmosphere, he reported quietly, not wanting to alarm Krillin more than necessary. "They're not bothering to hide their approach anymore." "How can you possibly know that?" Roshi demanded, his usual patience strained by the evening's revelations. "Goku, I've been teaching martial arts for over 300 years, and I've never encountered anyone with sensory capabilities like yours, combined with your combat skills and that business about other timelines." "I know it sounds impossible," Goku replied, watching Pilaf huddle in the back seat with the shell-shocked expression of someone whose worldview had been completely shattered. "But the truth is even more complicated than you think." Before Roshi could respond, every piece of electronic equipment in the aircraft began screaming warnings simultaneously. The radio crackled with emergency broadcasts in multiple languages. The navigation system spun wildly between impossible readings, and the engine itself began to sputter as electromagnetic interference cascaded through its systems. "Something big just entered the atmosphere," Roshi announced grimly, fighting to maintain control as the aircraft bucked against invisible forces. "Something that's generating an electromagnetic field strong enough to disrupt technology across half the planet." Goku's blood turned to ice as his senses identified the approaching energy signature. Massive, brutally aggressive, and carrying the distinctive resonance of Saiyan blood, but twisted with something else. Something that spoke of timeline manipulation and forbidden knowledge. "It's Raditz," he whispered, the name carrying weight that made everyone else in the aircraft look at him with alarm. "My brother." "You're what?" Krillin practically shouted. "Goku, you have a brother. And he's causing all this." "It's complicated," Goku said, his mind already shifting into strategic analysis mode. In his original timeline, Raditz had arrived when Goku was an adult with years of training and experience. Now, facing his Saiyan brother in the body of a 6-year-old while trying to conceal his true capabilities, the tactical situation was almost impossible. "More complicated than having alien soldiers attack us while hunting for someone who supposedly doesn't exist?" Roshi asked dryly. "Much more complicated," Goku confirmed as he watched a pod streak across the sky like a falling star, its trajectory carrying it directly toward their flight path. "And I'm afraid it's about to get worse." The pod's impact with the ocean sent a shockwave through the water that lifted their aircraft like a toy boat in a tsunami. Roshi's piloting skills kept them airborne, but barely, as massive waves and pressure changes from the impact threatened to tear the small craft apart. When the disturbance settled, 2 figures stood on the surface of the ocean as if it were solid ground, a feat that required such precise key control that even Goku was impressed despite his circumstances. The first was exactly as he remembered: Raditz, his long-haired Saiyan brother, wrapped in battle armor that spoke of conquest and violence across countless worlds. The second figure made Goku's heart stop. "That's not possible," he breathed, recognizing the energy signature despite the temporal impossibility. The warrior standing beside Raditz carried himself with the confident bearing of someone who had achieved perfect power through the absorption of others. His appearance was humanoid but clearly artificial, green skin marked with distinctive patterns that no amount of timeline alteration should have made possible this early. Perfect Cell. But not the Cell from his original timeline. This version's energy signature carried traces of techniques and power sources that suggested a completely different evolutionary path. "Brother," Raditz's voice carried across the water with the amplified projection of someone accustomed to addressing armies. "I know you're here. Your energy signature has been broadcasting across half the galaxy for months." "Fascinating," Cell added, his voice carrying that distinctive mixture of intelligence and malice that had made him one of Goku's most dangerous enemies. "According to my sources, you shouldn't exist at all. The Saiyan called Kakarot died in Timeline Alpha Prime, sacrificing himself to prevent universal collapse. Yet here you are, somehow reborn with all your power intact." He knows, Goku realized with growing horror. Not just about my Saiyan heritage, but about my specific timeline and the circumstances of my rebirth. Someone has been feeding him information that should be impossible to obtain. "Who is that?" Krillin whispered, his voice shaking with instinctive terror at Cell's presence. "Someone who shouldn't exist for another 20 years, Goku replied grimly. "This is what I was trying to warn everyone about. The timeline changes aren't just affecting Earth. They're pulling threats from other realities, and some of those threats have been given information about me specifically." Raditz launched himself into the air with casual ease, crossing the distance between ocean and aircraft in seconds. He landed on the wing with enough force to crack the metal, but precisely controlled to avoid sending them into a fatal spin. Through the window, his dark eyes met Goku's with an expression of complex emotion, recognition, anger, and something that might have been relief. "Little brother," he said, his voice now soft enough for only their aircraft's occupants to hear. "You've grown strong since I last saw you, but also different. Your energy signature carries echoes of power that should be impossible for someone your apparent age." "Raditz," Goku replied carefully, knowing that his next words could determine whether this encounter ended in violence or conversation. "Why are you here? In my original timeline, you didn't arrive for another 2 years." His brother's eyes widened with surprise that quickly shifted to something approaching awe. "Original timeline, then it's true, you do remember." The rumors spreading through the underworld suggested that someone had achieved reincarnation with full memory retention, but I thought it was just another myth. "It's not a myth," Goku confirmed, "but it's also not a blessing. Every day I'm alive creates ripples that attract exactly the kind of attention we're dealing with right now." Cell's laughter carried across the water like breaking glass. "How touching, a family reunion. But we're not here for sentiment, Raditz. We have a job to complete." "What job?" Master Roshi interjected, though his hand was already moving toward the emergency controls that would eject all passengers if the aircraft became unsalvageable. "Collection and delivery," Cell replied with predatory satisfaction. "There are several interested parties who want to study the temporal anomaly that's been disrupting dimensional stability across multiple realities. Some want to understand how the process works. Others simply want to eliminate a variable they can't control." "And you're working for them?" Goku asked Raditz, though his enhanced senses were already picking up signs that his brother's loyalty to this mission wasn't as absolute as Cell believed. "I'm working for survival," Raditz replied honestly. "The Frieza Empire has been destabilized by reports of surviving Saiyans with impossible power levels. Vegeta and Nappa have been recruited by forces from multiple timelines who want to use us as weapons against threats we don't understand. When Cell approached me with detailed intelligence about your location and abilities, cooperation seemed like the only option that kept me alive." "Except Cell is lying about his intentions," Goku pointed out. "In every timeline where he achieves perfect form, he eliminates anyone who might pose a future threat. That includes Saiyans who know too much about his capabilities." Cell's expression shifted to something that might have been impressed. "Very good, it seems your cosmic awareness extends beyond just combat techniques. But you're forgetting something important. In this timeline, I've had years to prepare specifically for you. I know your fighting style, your psychological weaknesses, and most importantly, your tendency to hold back when innocent lives are at stake." As if summoned by his words, multiple aircraft appeared on the horizon, passenger planes, cargo vessels, and civilian transports that had been in the area when the electromagnetic disturbance began. All of them were now caught in the expanding energy field that Cell was generating, their engines failing as they began to fall toward the ocean. Approximately 400 innocent people, Cell continued conversationally, falling to their deaths unless someone with sufficient power intervenes to save them. But here's the interesting part. Saving them will require you to reveal capabilities that contradict your apparent age and training level. Choose quickly, little Saiyan. Do you maintain your secret, or do you save their lives? The tactical situation crystallized in Goku's mind with brutal clarity. This wasn't just about fighting Cell or dealing with Raditz. This was a carefully constructed test designed to force him into revealing his true power level. And with every second of hesitation, hundreds of people were falling to their deaths. Master Roshi, he said quietly, can you and Krillin handle the aircraft rescues on the eastern sector? Goku, Roshi replied urgently, there are at least a dozen planes falling simultaneously. Even working together, we can't possibly. You can't, Goku agreed, standing up despite the aircraft's violent motion. But I can, and it's time to stop pretending otherwise. Before anyone could stop him, he opened the aircraft door and stepped out into the turbulent air 3,000 feet above the ocean. But instead of falling, he simply stood there, suspended by key control so precise it made the air itself seem solid beneath his feet. Krillin, he called back to his shocked friend, remember what I'm about to show you. Remember that no matter what power I demonstrate, I'm still the same person who's been training alongside you. The strength doesn't change who I am inside. Then he moved. To the observers below, it looked like teleportation. One moment a small figure standing in empty air, the next moment appearing simultaneously beside multiple falling aircraft. But Goku wasn't teleporting. He was moving so fast that he could intercept each plane individually while appearing to be in all locations at once. The rescue technique he employed was something he had developed during his final battles, compassionate force distribution. Instead of simply catching the aircraft, which would have destroyed them through deceleration forces, he surrounded each one with precisely controlled energy fields that gradually slowed their descent while maintaining breathable atmosphere for the passengers. Within 30 seconds, all 14 aircraft had been safely deposited on the ocean's surface, their passengers and crew unharmed but completely bewildered by what they had experienced. The silence that followed was deafening. Impossible, Cell breathed, his confident demeanor cracking for the first time. The energy expenditure for that technique should have required, you're not just reincarnated. You're reincarnated with access to divine-level abilities. Not divine, Goku corrected, landing gracefully back on Roshi's aircraft wing. Just experienced. I've had a lot of practice saving people. But Raditz was staring at him with an expression of pure awe. Brother, what did you become in your previous life? Your energy signature during that rescue. It carried traces of Ultra Instinct. That technique is supposed to be impossible for mortals to master. I had good teachers, Goku said simply. And more importantly, I had people worth protecting who helped me understand what true strength means. Cell's recovery was swift and dangerous. Fascinating data, he announced, his scientific curiosity clearly overriding his shock. But ultimately irrelevant. Raditz, initiate extraction protocol Delta-9. Wait, Raditz said, raising a hand that stopped Cell's advance. This changes things. If my brother has achieved divine-level mastery, then the intelligence we were given is incomplete. Incomplete how? Cell demanded. Because someone with Ultra Instinct capabilities isn't just a threat to be contained, Raditz explained. He's a force of nature that could destabilize entire galactic regions if provoked. The smart play here isn't capture, it's negotiation. Finally, Goku thought, Raditz always was smarter than people gave him credit for. He's starting to understand that this isn't a simple collection mission. Negotiation, Cell's voice carried murderous amusement. With a child, with a reincarnated warrior who just demonstrated power levels that exceed most planetary destruction capabilities, Raditz corrected firmly. Cell, I agreed to help you locate him. I didn't agree to participate in a suicide mission. The tension between the two aliens was palpable, and Goku realized this might be his only opportunity to prevent the confrontation from escalating beyond anyone's control. There's something else you should know, he announced, his voice carrying across the water with unmistakable authority. Both of you, the forces that sent you here, they're not planning to honor their agreements. The timeline convergences my rebirth has created are attracting attention from entities that view all of us as expendable resources. What kind of entities? Raditz asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected the answer. The kind that eat realities, Goku replied grimly. My rebirth was part of a cosmic defense system, preparing the multiverse for threats that transcend individual timelines. The people who hired you are either ignorant of that fact, or they're actively working to prevent the defense from succeeding. Cell's laughter was sharp with disbelief. Reality-eating entities. Even for someone claiming cosmic awareness, that sounds like. He never finished the sentence. At the edge of everyone's perception, something vast and hostile had appeared, not in their physical reality, but pressing against it from outside, testing the boundaries between dimensions with malevolent intelligence. "Do you feel that?" Goku asked quietly. "That presence that's just started examining our reality from the spaces between timelines. That's what my rebirth was meant to prepare for. And every moment we waste fighting each other is a moment that thing gets closer to finding a way in." The color drained from Cell's face as his enhanced senses confirmed what Goku was describing. That energy signature. "It's not from any timeline I've encountered. It feels like hunger," Raditz finished, his warrior's instincts recognizing a predator even when he couldn't see it directly. "Something that feeds on the kind of energy we're all generating right now." Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the tension, calm, measured, and carrying the unmistakable authority of true wisdom. "The child speaks truth," announced Piccolo as he descended from the clouds above, his dramatic cape billowing despite the lack of wind. "The Namekian Dragon Balls have been resonating with dimensional disturbances for weeks. Something is coming that threatens not just Earth, but the fundamental structure of reality itself." Behind him, floating with the serene composure that marked him as a true deity, came Kame. The guardian of Earth's appearance sent ripples of unease through both Cell and Raditz. His energy signature was so perfectly balanced that it seemed to exist in harmony with the planet itself. "Guardian," Goku said respectfully, bowing despite the tactical situation. "I'm sorry my presence has brought this crisis to Earth." "Your presence hasn't brought the crisis, young Saiyan," Kame replied with infinite patience. "Your presence is the response to a crisis that was always coming. The question now is whether we face it as enemies or as allies." Cell's combat stance shifted as he evaluated the new arrivals. The guardian of Earth and his alter ego. Interesting, but ultimately, two more variables to be eliminated if they interfere with my mission. "Your mission," Piccolo said with dangerous calm, "is based on false intelligence provided by entities that want to weaken this reality's defenses. The boy's rebirth isn't a threat to be contained, it's a weapon to be prepared for battle." "Battle against what?" Raditz demanded, though his energy signature suggested he was beginning to understand the scope of what they were discussing. "Against the forces that exist in the spaces between realities," Kame explained. "Entities that feed on dimensional instability and grow stronger whenever timelines intersect. The child's rebirth has created a nexus point, but it's also created the potential for power levels that can drive such entities back." Goku felt a surge of relief at finally having allies who understood the bigger picture. But that relief was short-lived as his enhanced senses detected new energy signatures approaching from multiple directions. "We have company," he announced. "Lots of company. And they're all coming here." Across the sky, dozens of lights were converging on their location, some clearly spacecraft, others moving too erratically to be technological. The electromagnetic disturbances from Raditz's arrival had served as a beacon, drawing every interested party within detection range to investigate the source. "Vegeta and Nappa," Raditz identified grimly, along with "forces I don't recognize. Cell, it looks like your information leak has attracted more attention than either of us anticipated." "Good," Cell replied, though his confidence sounded forced. "More subjects for analysis and potential absorption." "You still don't understand," Goku said with growing urgency. "This isn't about individual power levels anymore. Every energy signature we generate, every technique we demonstrate, every moment we spend fighting each other instead of preparing, it all feeds the entities that want to consume this reality." "Then what do you propose?" Piccolo asked, though his question was clearly directed more at gathering intelligence than seeking guidance. "Alliance," Goku replied immediately. "Temporary, tactical, focused on the immediate crisis. We deal with the convergent situation first, then sort out our individual conflicts after reality is secure." Raditz looked torn between loyalty to his mission and the growing evidence that his brother was right about the larger threat. Cell appeared to be calculating odds and potential outcomes with mechanical precision. Piccolo and Kame exchanged glances that carried entire conversations about cosmic responsibility and necessary sacrifices. The decision was made for all of them when the first of the approaching ships opened fire on their general location, without bothering to identify targets or establish communication. Energy beams designed to vaporize entire city blocks lanced down from the sky, forcing everyone present to dodge or defend rather than continue their standoff. "Well," Raditz said grimly as he deflected a blast that would have destroyed several of the rescued aircraft, "I suppose that settles the alliance question." "Temporarily," Cell agreed, his own defensive movements revealing combat capabilities that exceeded even Goku's memories of their original encounters. "For now," Piccolo confirmed, moving to shield the civilians who were still floating helplessly in their aircraft. But as they fought side by side against the incoming assault, Goku couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly what their hidden enemies had wanted. All of Earth's most powerful defenders gathered in one location, burning through energy reserves while demonstrating their capabilities for analysis and countermeasure development. Somewhere in the spaces between realities, something vast and hungry was watching, learning, and preparing for the moment when the barriers between dimensions grew thin enough for it to finally feed. The early storm had arrived, but it was only the beginning of what was coming. And in the distance, more ships were appearing every minute, carrying enemies from timelines that shouldn't exist, all drawn to the nexus point that Goku's rebirth had created. His second genesis was becoming a war that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but every reality connected to it. The real battle was about to begin. The battle above Earth's oceans had ended in a stalemate that satisfied no one. Cell and Raditz had withdrawn to reassess the tactical situation, while the coalition of unknown ships had dispersed after realizing they were facing more resistance than expected. But Goku knew this was merely the calm before an even more devastating storm. As he stood on the rebuilt Kame house, hastily reconstructed using Capsule Corp technology that Bulma had insisted on providing after hearing about the mysterious energy disturbances, his enhanced senses continued to track hostile movements throughout Earth's solar system. 14 different factions maintaining surveillance positions, he reported to the assembled defenders. At least 3 more approaching from deep space, and something else. Something that's using stealth technology I don't recognize. Master Roshi lowered his telescope with a grim expression. In 60 years of monitoring cosmic threats, I've never seen anything like this level of organized interest in Earth. It's as if every major power in the galaxy suddenly decided we were worth their attention. "That's because I am," Goku said quietly, the weight of responsibility settling on his young shoulders like a physical burden. "My rebirth created a nexus point that's broadcasting my existence across multiple realities. Every faction that knows about timeline convergences is sending representatives to either recruit me or eliminate me." Piccolo, who had maintained a meditative stance since the battle's end, opened his eyes with obvious concern. "The Dragon Balls are resonating more strongly each day. Whatever cosmic event your rebirth was meant to prepare for, it's accelerating beyond anyone's original timeline. Which is why I need to seek guidance from someone who understands cosmic-level threats," Goku announced, making a decision that had been forming in his mind since the confrontation with Cell. "I'm going to King Kai." The silence that greeted this statement was profound. Krillin looked confused, Master Roshi appeared shocked, and both Piccolo and Kame exchanged glances that carried entire conversations about divine protocol and cosmic hierarchy. "King Kai," Krillin finally managed. "Goku, who is King Kai?" "The ruler of the North Galaxy," Goku explained, his strategic mind already calculating the complex logistics of what he was proposing. "A deity whose jurisdiction includes Earth and who has the authority to provide training that can prepare mortals for cosmic-level threats." "You speak as if you know him personally," Kame observed carefully. "Young Saiyan, the path to King Kai's realm requires passage through the afterlife itself. It is not a journey undertaken lightly, and certainly not one possible for the living." "Under normal circumstances," Goku agreed. "But these aren't normal circumstances, and there are techniques that can allow a living being to traverse Snake Way without dying first." Master Roshi's eyes widened with recognition. "The instantaneous movement technique. But that's purely theoretical. No one has ever successfully—" "I have," Goku interrupted gently. "In my previous life, I learned it from the Yardrats and later refined it through extensive practice. The question isn't whether I can reach King Kai's planet. The question is whether I can do it without revealing power levels that will attract even more unwanted attention." "This is insane," Krillin protested. "Goku, you're 6 years old. Even if you somehow have the power to attempt interplanetary teleportation, what makes you think this King Kai person will want to train you?" Because he'll recognize what I am the moment he senses my energy signature, Goku replied with certainty that came from experience. King Kai has been monitoring the cosmic disturbances my rebirth created. He knows something unprecedented is happening, and he'll want to understand what it means for universal stability. Before anyone could raise further objections, Goku's enhanced senses detected a familiar energy signature approaching from the upper atmosphere. "We have a visitor," he announced. "Someone who might actually be able to help us understand what we're dealing with." A figure materialized on the beach outside Kame House, not through teleportation, but by stepping sideways through dimensional space as if reality were merely a curtain to be pushed aside. The newcomer was humanoid, but clearly not human, with skin that seemed to shift between colors depending on the angle of observation and eyes that held depths suggesting vast experience. "Greetings, defenders of Earth," the being said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate directly in their minds. "I am Kranoa, Supreme Kai of Time, and I have come because the temporal disturbances emanating from this location have begun affecting the stability of multiple timelines simultaneously." Goku's blood turned to ice. The Supreme Kai of Time, a being whose power exceeded most gods of destruction, and whose responsibility included maintaining the integrity of the entire multiverse. Her appearance meant that his rebirth had attracted attention from the highest levels of cosmic authority. "Supreme Kai," he said respectfully, bowing despite the tactical disadvantage it created. "I understand my existence has created complications for timeline stability." "Complications," Kranoa repeated with what might have been amusement. "Young Saiyan, your rebirth has created the largest temporal convergence event in recorded cosmic history. 37 different timeline variants are now aware of each other's existence, and at least 12 are actively attempting to cross dimensional barriers to reach this reality." "Is that bad?" Krillin asked hesitantly. "Catastrophic," Kranoa confirmed. "When timelines converge without proper controls, the resulting dimensional instability can collapse entire universal clusters. However," she continued, her gaze focusing intently on Goku, "your rebirth wasn't random. The Grand Zano authorized it specifically because conventional defenses were proving inadequate against certain multiversal threats." "What kind of threats?" Piccolo demanded. "The kind that exist in the spaces between realities," Kranoa explained. "Entities that feed on dimensional chaos and grow stronger whenever timeline barriers weaken. Your rebirth, young Saiyan, was meant to create a warrior capable of fighting such beings on their own terms." "Which brings us back to the training issue," Goku said. "My current body can only contain a fraction of my true power, and every day I remain at this level is another day our enemies have to prepare countermeasures. I need guidance from King Kai to develop techniques that can bridge the gap between my cosmic knowledge and my physical limitations." Kranoa studied him with eyes that seemed to see through time itself. "You propose to visit King Kai's planet while maintaining your mortal form. Interesting. Most beings who attempt that journey do so after death, which provides certain protections against the rigors of Snake Way. Most beings don't have experience with dimensional travel techniques," Goku pointed out. "I can reach King Kai's planet safely, but I'll need to suppress my energy signature during the journey to avoid attracting attention from forces monitoring dimensional traffic. And you believe King Kai will provide the training you need?" "I believe King Kai will recognize the necessity," Goku replied carefully. "The cosmic balance depends on preparing for threats that conventional wisdom says are impossible. Sometimes that requires unconventional approaches." The Supreme Kai of Time was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing factors that extended far beyond the immediate conversation. Finally, she nodded with what appeared to be approval. "Very well. I will provide you with a temporal stabilizer, a device that will mask your dimensional signature during the journey and prevent your passage from creating additional timeline disturbances. But understand this, once you begin training with King Kai, there will be no hiding the extent of your true capabilities. Every cosmic entity monitoring Earth will know that you have accessed divine-level instruction." Meaning the real war will begin the moment you return," Kranoa said grimly. "Forces from multiple timelines will converge on this location, with the understanding that you represent either their greatest ally or their most dangerous enemy. There will be no middle ground." Goku looked around at his friends and allies, seeing the mixture of concern and determination in their expressions. Krillin still looked confused by the cosmic scope of what they were discussing, but his loyalty was absolute. Master Roshi appeared overwhelmed but ready to face whatever came. Piccolo and Kame showed the grim acceptance of beings who understood the true stakes involved. "How long do we have?" he asked. "My surveillance indicates that Vegeta has formed an alliance with entities from at least 4 different timelines," Kranoa replied. "They're gathering forces for a coordinated assault that will test every defense Earth possesses. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Then I need to leave now," Goku decided. "Every hour of delay is another hour our enemies have to strengthen their coalition." "Goku," Krillin said urgently, "what if something goes wrong? What if you can't get back in time?" "Then you'll have to hold the line without me," Goku replied honestly. "But I have faith in all of you, and more importantly, I know that this is the only way to prepare for what's coming." Kranoa produced a device that looked like a crystalline pendant, its faceted surface containing what appeared to be miniature galaxies. "The temporal stabilizer. Wear it during your journey, and it will prevent your passage from creating detectable disturbances. But use it sparingly. Each activation draws energy from the time vault itself." As Goku accepted the device, he felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling around him like a mantle. This wasn't just about his own power anymore. It was about preparing to face threats that could destroy everything he had ever cared about across multiple realities. "One more thing," he said to the assembled group. "While I'm gone, you might encounter enemies who know things about me that seem impossible. They may have intelligence from alternate timelines, or they may claim to have fought me before. Don't let it confuse you. Stay focused on protecting Earth and each other." With that, he stepped away from the group and began the complex process of preparing for dimensional travel. The technique required absolute precision, too little power, and he would never reach Snake Way. Too much, and he would announce his journey to every cosmic entity within 1,000 light-years. Instant transmission, adapted for dimensional boundaries, he focused, feeling for the distinctive energy signature of King Kai's planet. In his previous life, the technique had become as natural as breathing. Now, forcing it through the limitations of a 6-year-old body while maintaining perfect concealment, it felt like trying to thread a needle while wearing heavy gloves. The familiar sensation of teleportation enveloped him, but this time it was filtered through layers of temporal stabilization that made the journey feel like swimming through thick liquid. Reality blurred around him as he transitioned from Earth's dimensional space to the metaphysical realm where King Kai's planet existed, a place that was simultaneously part of the physical universe and separate from it. When the transportation completed, Goku found himself standing on the small, red planet that had been the site of some of his most important training in his previous life. The gravity was exactly as he remembered, 10 times Earth normal, but instead of overwhelming his child's body, it felt almost comfortable. His reborn physiology was adapting to the environment with supernatural efficiency. "Well, well," came a familiar voice from behind him. "This is unexpected." Goku turned to see King Kai emerging from his small house, the diminutive blue-skinned deity looking exactly as he remembered, but with an expression of profound bewilderment. Behind him, Bubbles the monkey and Gregory the cricket watched with the alert attention of beings who sensed something unprecedented happening. "King Kai," Goku said respectfully, bowing with genuine reverence. "Thank you for allowing me to visit your realm." "Allowing?" King Kai's voice rose with surprise. "Young man, no living being has ever successfully reached my planet without dying first, and your energy signature, it's impossible. You read as both child and cosmic entity simultaneously." "It's complicated," Goku admitted, "but I think you already know that something unprecedented is happening with Earth's dimensional stability." King Kai's expression grew serious as he studied Goku with senses that could perceive across galactic distances. "Indeed, the temporal disturbances have been affecting my ability to monitor the North Galaxy for weeks. Energy readings that suggest timeline convergences, dimensional barriers weakening, and most disturbing of all, movements from entities that should exist only in theoretical physics. All caused by my rebirth," Goku confirmed. "I'm here because I need training that can help me control abilities that are too powerful for my current physical form, while also learning to mask my true capabilities from forces that want to either capture or eliminate me." "Rebirth?" King Kai's eyes widened with understanding. "You're claiming to be reincarnated with full memory retention. That's never been recorded in cosmic history. The Grand Zano authorized it as preparation for threats that conventional defenses couldn't handle," Goku explained. "But the process created complications that no one anticipated." King Kai was silent for several minutes, his consciousness clearly extending across vast distances as he confirmed details that Goku couldn't see. Finally, he nodded with the grim acceptance of someone who understood the true scope of cosmic responsibility. "Show me," he commanded. "Demonstrate enough of your true capabilities to prove your claims, but do it in a way that won't alert every deity in the universe to your presence here." Goku considered the request carefully. King Kai needed proof, but any significant power demonstration would risk exposure to exactly the kind of cosmic attention he was trying to avoid. The solution required a technique so subtle that only someone with divine-level perception would recognize it. Silent God activation, he focused, allowing a precisely controlled fraction of his true power to flow through his child's body. To any external observer, he would appear unchanged, same size, same basic energy signature, same apparent age. But King Kai, with his cosmic awareness, would be able to perceive the qualitative shift in power density that indicated abilities far beyond normal parameters. The effect was immediate. King Kai staggered backward as if physically struck, his face going pale with shock as he perceived energy patterns that suggested power levels approaching divine status contained within a mortal child's form. "Impossible," he whispered. "That technique, it's not just power compression, it's reality compression. You're folding spacetime around yourself to create a localized pocket where different physical laws apply." "I developed it during my final battles in my previous existence," Goku explained, allowing the technique to fade back to normal concealment levels. When fighting enemies that could destroy universes, sometimes the only advantage was being able to hide your true capabilities until the decisive moment. "Universe-destroying enemies," King Kai repeated faintly. "And you actually fought beings of that magnitude." "I fought beings who made universe destroyers look weak," Goku said quietly. "Which is why I need your help. The entities drawn to Earth by my rebirth aren't just powerful, they're the kind of threats that require strategic thinking, perfect technique, and absolute mastery of energy control to defeat. Raw power alone won't be enough." King Kai studied him for a long moment, then nodded with the decisive authority of someone making a choice that would affect galactic history. "Very well, I'll train you. But understand, what I'm about to teach you will fundamentally change how your abilities interact with reality itself. Once you master these techniques, there will be no going back to normal mortality. You'll be operating at levels that attract the personal attention of gods of destruction." "I understand," Goku replied, "but the alternative is watching everyone I care about be destroyed by forces I could have been prepared to face." Then we begin immediately. First lesson, advanced key concealment theory. You think you're hiding your power effectively, but any angel or god of destruction can see through your current techniques like glass. I'm going to teach you to create false energy signatures, so convincing that even cosmic entities will misread your true capabilities. For the next several hours, King Kai put Goku through the most intensive energy training of either of his lifetimes. Unlike his previous education, which had focused on increasing power levels, this training was about absolute precision, learning to manipulate energy signatures with surgical accuracy while maintaining perfect control over dimensional interactions. The advanced key concealment techniques were revelatory. Instead of simply suppressing his power, Goku learned to create layered false readings that would show different energy levels to different types of detection. A scouter would read one thing, a divine entity would perceive another, and timeline monitoring equipment would detect something entirely different. "Fascinating," King Kai observed as Goku successfully demonstrated a technique that made him appear simultaneously weak to technological scanners and impressively strong to Kai-sensitive observers. "You're adapting to advanced concepts faster than beings who have trained for millennia. Your cosmic experience is providing intuitive understanding that normally takes centuries to develop." "It's not just experience," Goku realized as he felt the techniques settling into his muscle memory. "My rebirth process included adaptations that let me learn at accelerated rates. The Grand Zano didn't just give me my memories back, he gave me a learning capacity that can keep pace with escalating threats." "Which brings us to the most important technique I can teach you," King Kai said seriously. "The silent god state you've developed is impressive, but it's incomplete. What you need is a compression technique that doesn't just hide your power. It actually makes you stronger by concentrating abilities that are normally dispersed across cosmic-level energy patterns." The technique King Kai described was unlike anything Goku had encountered in his previous existence. Instead of simply compacting power into a smaller form, the Silent God Complete technique would create a feedback loop where compressed energy would generate additional power through dimensional resonance effects. "Think of it as the difference between squeezing a sponge and creating a black hole," King Kai explained. Both compress matter, but one simply removes space while the other creates gravitational effects that didn't exist before. Master this technique, and you'll be able to access exponentially greater power without increasing your apparent energy signature. The training process was exhausting in ways that transcended physical fatigue. Goku found himself manipulating concepts that existed at the boundary between physics and metaphysics, learning to think in terms of dimensional mathematics that his child's brain shouldn't have been able to process. But gradually, impossibly, it began to work. The completed Silent God technique felt like discovering a new sense. Instead of simply hiding his power, Goku could now access geometric increases in capability while maintaining perfect concealment. More importantly, the technique created a buffer between his cosmic abilities and his physical form, allowing him to use far more of his true strength without risking damage to his growing body. Remarkable, King Kai said, as Goku demonstrated the completed technique. Your power readings are showing as completely normal, but I can sense that you're actually operating at levels that would impress most minor deities. You've achieved something that shouldn't be possible, true transcendence without ascension. How long did this take? Goku asked, suddenly aware that he had no sense of time passing during the intense training. King Kai consulted a chronometer that displayed cosmic standard time. 14 hours. On Earth, approximately 6 hours have passed due to the time differential between dimensions. 6 hours, Goku repeated, his mind immediately shifting to tactical calculations. That leaves me 66 hours before the Coalition assault, minus travel time back to Earth. About the return journey, King Kai said carefully. Your arrival here was concealed by the temporal stabilizer, but your departure will be more difficult to hide. The techniques you've learned will be detectable to any cosmic entity monitoring dimensional traffic for exactly the kind of power signatures you now carry. Meaning your return to Earth will announce to every interested party that you've received divine-level training, King Kai explained grimly. The moment you arrive, the preliminary skirmishing will end and the real war will begin. Goku nodded with grim acceptance. He had known this moment would come, the point where concealment became impossible, and he would have to face his enemies with full knowledge of his true nature revealed. Then I'll make sure to be ready for them, he said with quiet determination. As he prepared for the return journey, King Kai placed a hand on his shoulder with paternal concern. Young Saiyan, the path you're walking will test everything you believe about strength, responsibility, and sacrifice. Remember that true power isn't about what you can destroy, it's about what you choose to protect. I'll remember, Goku promised. The return trip to Earth was every bit as challenging as King Kai had warned. Even with the temporal stabilizer, the sheer weight of the techniques Goku had mastered created ripples in dimensional space that would be detectable to anyone monitoring for exactly such disturbances. As Earth appeared in his perception, Goku could sense the changes that had occurred during his absence. More ships in orbit, more energy signatures gathering in hidden locations, and a growing sense of cosmic tension that suggested everyone was preparing for an inevitable confrontation. The preliminary battles were over. The real war was about to begin. And somewhere in the spaces between realities, something vast and hungry was stirring, drawn by the increasing dimensional instability that surrounded Earth like a gathering storm. Goku's second Genesis had just entered its most dangerous phase. Goku's return to Earth announced itself like a thunderclap across multiple dimensions. The moment his feet touched the reconstructed Kame house deck, every cosmic entity monitoring Earth's dimensional traffic received confirmation that the temporal anomaly had just completed training with a North Kai. The ripples of his enhanced power signature, despite the Silent God concealment, created aurora patterns in the upper atmosphere that were visible from space. Welcome back, Master Roshi said grimly, lowering a telescope that was clearly more advanced than anything Earth technology should have produced. I hope your training was successful, because our situation has deteriorated significantly during your absence. How significantly? Goku asked, though his enhanced senses were already providing disturbing answers. The energy signatures surrounding Earth had multiplied exponentially, and several of them carried the distinctive resonance of beings he had fought in his previous existence, but stronger, more coordinated, and clearly working together in ways that defied their original natures. See for yourself, Piccolo said, emerging from the shadows where he had been maintaining surveillance. In his hands was a scouter that had clearly been reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. 15 major ships in orbit, countless smaller vessels, and most concerning of all, a command vessel that's broadcasting power levels that shouldn't exist. Goku accepted the scouter and immediately understood Piccolo's concern. The readings were impossible. Multiple individuals whose power levels exceeded anything from his original timeline, all gathered in a single location and operating under unified command. But more disturbing than the raw numbers was the tactical precision of their deployment. These weren't random enemies drawn by curiosity. This was a military operation planned by someone who understood exactly what they were facing. "They know," he said quietly, "not just about my Saiyan heritage or my reincarnation, but about my specific fighting techniques, my psychological patterns, and probably my power progression from the original timeline." "How is that possible?" Krillin demanded, though his voice shook with the strain of maintaining courage in the face of cosmic-level threats. "How could anyone from this timeline know about things that happened in a different reality?" "Because they're not all from this timeline," Goku realized with growing dread. "Someone has been recruiting from multiple realities, gathering variants of enemies I've fought before and giving them intelligence about my capabilities. This isn't just about capturing me anymore, it's about eliminating a variable that threatens plans spanning multiple universes." Before anyone could respond to this revelation, the sky above them began to darken despite the midday sun. Not clouds, but something far more ominous, a massive shadow cast by ships so large they blocked significant portions of the sky. The lead vessel was unlike anything in Goku's memory of spacefaring technology, its hull incorporating design elements from dozens of different civilizations and radiating energy patterns that suggested weapons capable of planetary destruction. "Attention, defenders of Earth," a voice boomed from the sky, amplified by technology that made it audible across continents. "This is Prince Vegeta of the Saiyan Elite, speaking for the Coalition of Temporal Correction. We have come for the anomaly that threatens multiversal stability. Surrender the reincarnated warrior, and your planet will be spared." Prince Vegeta of the Saiyan Elite, Goku noted with interest. Not the Vegeta I remember, who had learned humility and developed beyond his royal arrogance. This version still carries himself with the absolute certainty of someone who's never experienced true defeat. "And if we refuse," Master Roshi called back, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone prepared to die fighting impossible odds, "then you will discover why 13 different realities have contributed their most dangerous warriors to this mission," came a new voice, one that made Goku's blood run cold. Nappa, but speaking with intelligence and tactical awareness that the original had never possessed. "This is not negotiation. This is final warning." A third voice joined the conversation, carrying the distinctive mechanical precision of artificial intelligence. "Surrender protocols expired upon the anomaly's return from divine training. Initiating capture sequence with authorization for maximum collateral damage." Android 19, Goku identified, but the energy signature was wrong, far more powerful than the original, and integrated with technology that suggested significant upgrades from sources beyond Dr. Jiro's capabilities. "Well," Piccolo said with dark humor, "at least they're not pretending this is going to be civilized." The first wave of attackers descended from the command ship with coordinated precision that spoke of extensive training specifically for this mission. Goku counted 12 individuals, each one moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were facing and had prepared accordingly. Leading the assault was Vegeta himself, but this version wore armor that incorporated energy absorption technology and power amplifiers that made his already formidable abilities even more dangerous. Behind him came Nappa, similarly enhanced, but also carrying weapons that radiated the distinctive energy signatures of multiple timeline sources. But it was the third figure that made Goku's heart stop completely. Perfect Cell, but not the perfect Cell from any timeline he recognized. This version's biomechanical form incorporated elements that suggested absorption of beings from multiple realities, his power signature reading as an impossible fusion of dozens of different energy sources. Most disturbing of all, his eyes held the cold intelligence of someone who had not just studied Goku's fighting style, but had somehow experienced fighting him directly. "Fascinating," Cell said as he landed gracefully on the beach outside Kame House. "The energy signature is exactly as predicted, cosmic-level power compressed into mortal form through techniques that shouldn't exist. Tell me, little Saiyan, do you remember our previous encounters?" "We've never fought in this timeline," Goku replied carefully, his mind racing through tactical possibilities while his body automatically assumed a combat stance. "No, but I have memories from 17 different timeline variants where perfect Cell entities engaged in combat with versions of you," Cell explained with predatory satisfaction. absorbed through methods that your reality's science couldn't yet comprehend. I know every technique you've ever developed, every strategic preference you've ever shown, and most importantly, every psychological weakness you've ever demonstrated. 17 different timelines, Goku processed the implications. This isn't just about gathering powerful enemies. Someone has been systematically collecting combat data from every reality where I've existed, then combining it into a single entity designed specifically to counter my abilities. How touching, Vegeta interrupted, his voice carrying the familiar arrogance but backed by genuine confidence. A family reunion, but we're not here for sentiment. Android 19, initiate scanning protocol. I want detailed readings on his current power configuration. The artificial being that had been Dr. Jiro's creation stepped forward, but this version had been extensively modified with technology that clearly wasn't terrestrial. His scanning beam swept over Goku with intensity that made the air itself shimmer, and the readings that emerged from his vocal processors were distinctly unsettling. Anomalous energy signature confirmed, Android 19 announced. Power level reads as approximately 800 in standard configuration, but dimensional analysis indicates compression ratios suggesting true capacity in excess of baseline divine thresholds. Subject has received training from North Kai entity within the last standard day. Divine thresholds, Nappa questioned, though his tone suggested this was confirmation of intelligence they already possessed rather than new information. The anomaly has achieved power levels that exceed most minor deities while maintaining mortal classification, Android 19 explained. This combination should be impossible under known physics, but timeline convergence effects may have created unprecedented evolutionary opportunities. They know about the silent god technique, Goku realized. Not the specifics, but enough to understand that my apparent power level is completely misleading. Interesting, Cell mused, circling Goku with the predatory grace of a natural hunter. In most timeline variants, achieving divine-level power required either death and resurrection or permanent transformation to non-mortal status. You've somehow managed to maintain mortality while accessing abilities that should be restricted to cosmic entities. It's called training hard and having good teachers, Goku replied, though his enhanced senses were tracking the positions of every enemy present while calculating optimal response strategies. Hard training, Vegeta repeated with contempt. You still think like a lower-class warrior, Kakarot. This isn't about training, this is about cosmic necessity. Your reincarnation has created instabilities that threaten the structural integrity of multiple reality clusters. You're not a person anymore, you're a natural disaster that needs to be contained. Before Goku could respond, his enhanced perception detected movement from multiple directions as the remaining members of the coalition revealed themselves. Guldo of the Jinyu Force materialized through time-stop techniques, but his power level had been augmented far beyond anything the original had possessed. Two more android-type beings appeared, their energy signatures suggesting they were variant versions of Dr. Jiro's creations from alternate timelines. Most concerning of all, three figures approached from the ocean itself, humanoid beings in advanced armor whose energy patterns suggested they weren't from any timeline Goku recognized. New enemies born from the chaos of converging realities. Impressive force, Master Roshi observed, though his casual tone was belied by the way his key signature had shifted to full combat readiness. I count. What 15 major threats, and that's just the advanced team. Actually, Cell corrected with amusement, this is the primary assault force. The advanced team was eliminated during their reconnaissance missions several days ago. Did you really think those pathetic scouts were the extent of our capabilities? They've been testing us systematically, Goku realized. Every encounter, every skirmish, every moment of revealed power, it was all intelligence gathering for this coordinated assault. The tactical situation is clear, Vegeta announced, his energy beginning to rise in preparation for combat. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and facing enemies who have been specifically prepared to counter your known capabilities. Surrender now and your planet's population will be relocated to suitable worlds rather than simply eliminated. And if we fight, Piccolo asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then you will provide valuable combat data for our analysis while we capture the anomaly anyway, Cell replied. Either outcome serves our purposes. Goku felt the familiar weight of impossible odds settling around him, but this time it was filtered through the cosmic awareness that King Kai's training had provided. These enemies weren't just powerful, They were operating according to strategic parameters that extended far beyond simple conquest. Someone with multiversal-level authority was coordinating this operation, and their goals went beyond just eliminating him. "There's something you should know," he said quietly, his voice carrying across the beach with unmistakable authority. "All of you, the forces that recruited you, the intelligence they provided, the promises they made about rewards for capturing me, they're lying about their ultimate objectives." Predictable psychological manipulation, Android 19 observed. Timeline analysis indicates Kakarot entities consistently attempt to convert enemies through appeals to honor or shared purpose. Probability of success, negligible. "This isn't about honor," Goku continued, ignoring the artificial being's analysis. "This is about survival. The timeline convergences my rebirth created, they weren't an accident. They're the universe's response to something that exists in the spaces between realities. Something that feeds on the kind of dimensional chaos you're helping to create." For a moment, uncertainty flickered across several faces. Vegeta's eternal pride warred with tactical intelligence, while Nappa's enhanced awareness began processing implications that his original timeline variant could never have comprehended. But Cell's laughter cut through any possibility of doubt. "Oh, this is even better than predicted. You actually believe you're some kind of cosmic savior, don't you? That your rebirth was ordained by forces of good rather than being an accident that threatens universal stability." "I believe the Grand Zano doesn't make accidents," Goku replied firmly. "The Grand Zano," Vegeta repeated, his energy signature spiking with alarm. "You claim direct contact with the Omni-King, not contact," Goku corrected. "Authorization. My rebirth was his response to threats that conventional power couldn't address. And every moment we spend fighting each other is another moment those threats have to prepare." The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the sound of waves against the beach and the distant hum of orbital weapons charging for potential planetary bombardment. Then Perfect Cell began to applaud, the sound somehow more menacing than any threat could have been. "Magnificent," he said with genuine admiration. Psychological manipulation combined with cosmic name-dropping and appeals to shared existential threats. "If I didn't have access to intelligence from 17 different timeline variants, I might almost believe you were sincere." "You think I'm lying? I think you're desperate," Cell replied. "And desperation makes even cosmic-level beings resort to strategies that work against lesser opponents. But we are not lesser opponents. We are specifically prepared to counter everything you represent." Before Goku could respond, the attack began. It started with Guldo stopping time around everyone except the coalition members, creating a tactical advantage that should have been insurmountable. But Goku's cosmic awareness, enhanced by King Kai's training, existed partially outside normal temporal flow. He could still move, still think, still act even while frozen moments stretched around him. The Silent God Complete technique activated automatically, compressing his power into configurations that generated exponential increases in capability while maintaining perfect concealment. To external observation, he appeared motionless like everyone else. In reality, he was operating at speeds that made Guldo's time manipulation seem sluggish. 4 seconds of stop time remaining, he calculated while analyzing the tactical situation. 12 enemies in optimal striking positions, plus 3 unknowns maintaining Overwatch. Standard combat approach would require revealing power levels that confirm their intelligence about my capabilities. The solution came to him in a flash of inspiration born from cosmic experience. Instead of fighting the coalition directly, he would use their own coordination against them. The precision of their tactics was based on knowing his power level and fighting style. But those calculations depended on him fighting at all. When time resumed, Goku was exactly where he had been when Guldo froze him, apparently having been caught completely off guard by the temporal manipulation. The coalition's assault proceeded exactly as planned. Overwhelming force, applied simultaneously from multiple angles to prevent any possibility of escape or effective counterattack. Vegeta's enhanced energy blast struck first, followed microseconds later by Cell's absorption beam and Android 19's power drain attack. The combined assault should have been sufficient to incapacitate anyone below divine power levels while leaving the target alive for capture. Instead, their attacks passed harmlessly through empty air. Afterimage, Nappa breathed, his enhanced tactical awareness immediately recognizing what had happened. But the timing is impossible. No one can move fast enough to escape temporal lock and create convincing afterimages before time resumes. No one operating under normal physics, Goku's voice came from directly behind Cell, though his apparent position was still in front of the android's scanning array. But I haven't been operating under normal physics for several hours now. The technique he had used was a fusion of concepts from King Kai's training and his own cosmic experience, dimensional echo positioning. Instead of moving physically, he had created quantum probability shadows that allowed him to exist in multiple potential locations simultaneously until observation collapsed the wave function. To the Coalition, he appeared to be in 12 different positions at once, each one equally real until they committed to attacking a specific location. Only then did reality determine which position was genuine and which were echoes. Fascinating, Cell said, though his confidence was beginning to show strain. Quantum superposition applied to combat positioning. That technique shouldn't be possible for mortal beings. A lot of things shouldn't be possible, Goku agreed, allowing his voice to come from all positions simultaneously. But timeline convergences tend to create opportunities for impossible things. The battle escalated rapidly as the Coalition adapted their tactics to account for Goku's enhanced capabilities. Vegeta abandoned energy attacks in favor of area effect techniques that would damage all possible positions. Android 19 switched from targeted absorption to general energy drain that affected the entire combat zone. Cell began using cellular regeneration to create multiple copies of himself, each one attacking different probability shadows. But instead of overwhelming Goku, their adaptations revealed weaknesses in their coordination. The tactical precision that had been their greatest advantage became a liability when dealing with an opponent who could exist in quantum superposition. Their attacks began interfering with each other as they tried to cover all possible positions simultaneously. They trained to fight the Goku they remembered. He realized while deflecting 17 simultaneous attacks through dimensional echo techniques. But the Goku they remembered never had access to cosmic-level training or quantum manipulation abilities. The turning point came when Guldo attempted another time stop, expecting to catch Goku off guard again. Instead, Goku used the temporal disruption as an anchor point for a technique King Kai had called causal loop positioning, stepping outside the normal flow of cause and effect to strike at moments that technically hadn't happened yet. His counterattack was precise and overwhelming. In the space between one stopped moment and the next, he delivered calculated strikes to pressure points that would temporarily disable each Coalition member without causing permanent damage. The technique required cosmic-level precision and power that exceeded most deities, but appeared to observers as nothing more than exceptional martial arts skill. When time resumed, the entire Coalition collapsed simultaneously, their nervous systems temporarily shut down by strikes they never saw coming. The silence that followed was deafening. Impossible, Vegeta gasped, struggling to maintain consciousness despite the paralysis spreading through his enhanced body. Your power reading, it never changed. The sensors showed normal levels throughout the entire engagement. Because I never used more power than a normal martial artist, Goku explained truthfully. What I used was better technique. Training that taught me to achieve maximum effect through perfect precision rather than overwhelming force. Perfect. Precision, Cell repeated, his multiple copies flickering as his concentration failed. That technique. It resembles descriptions from timeline Omega-class encounters, events that were classified above universal security clearance. Timeline Omega-class, Goku's cosmic awareness supplied the meaning. Encounters with entities that existed beyond the boundaries of individual realities. Someone has been feeding the Coalition intelligence from sources that shouldn't exist. Who gave you that information? He demanded, allowing genuine authority to color his voice. Who provided intelligence about classified cosmic events? Before any of the Coalition members could answer, the sky above them began to tear. Not metaphorically, reality itself was developing fissures, revealing glimpses of other dimensions where different versions of the same battle were playing out simultaneously. Through the tears, Goku could see alternate Earths where the Coalition had succeeded, where his friends had died, where the planet itself had been consumed by forces too terrible to name. And watching from the spaces between realities, something vast and hungry was stirring, drawn by the dimensional instability that the battle had created. Do you see? Goku called to the paralyzed Coalition members. Do you understand what your mission has accomplished? Every technique you've used, every quantum disruption you've created, every moment you've spent destabilizing this reality, it's all been feeding something that wants to devour existence itself. The tears in reality widened, and through them came a sound that existed below the threshold of hearing, but resonated in the bones of every living being within 1,000 kilometers. The sound of infinite hunger, patient and implacable, growing stronger with each moment of dimensional chaos. Perfect Cell's enhanced awareness was the first to comprehend what they were witnessing. "That energy signature," he whispered, his arrogance finally cracking. "It's not from any timeline, it's not from any reality, it's from the spaces between, the void itself." "Now you're beginning to understand," Goku said grimly as he moved among the fallen coalition members, using precise key manipulation to counteract the paralysis and restore their ability to move. "My rebirth wasn't about creating a weapon to threaten the multiverse. It was about creating a defender capable of fighting threats that exist outside the multiverse entirely." As the coalition members struggled to their feet, their eyes were fixed on the tears in reality and the terrible presence that watched from beyond. The tactical situation had changed completely, no longer a battle for capture or conquest, but a desperate race to repair dimensional damage before something incomprehensibly dangerous found a way through. "The mission," Vegeta said hoarsely, his royal pride warring with the evidence of his own eyes. "We were told capturing you would stabilize the timeline convergences." "You were told what you needed to hear to create exactly this situation," Goku replied. "Maximum dimensional instability, all of Earth's defenders gathered in one location, and reality weakened to the point where barriers between dimensions could be breached." The sound from beyond reality grew louder, more insistent, accompanied by vibrations that made the air itself seem to shiver with anticipation. Something was coming, something that had been waiting in the darkness between worlds for exactly this opportunity. And in 67 hours, when Earth's dimensional barriers collapsed completely, it would finally be free to feed. The coalition of shadows had served their purpose perfectly, not as conquerors, but as unwitting agents of something far more dangerous than any of them could have imagined. The real enemy was about to reveal itself. The tears in reality widened with each passing second, revealing glimpses of dimensions that should never touch. Through the fractures in spacetime, Goku could see alternate versions of their battle playing out simultaneously, timelines where Perfect Cell had succeeded in absorbing him, where Vegeta's pride had led to Earth's destruction, where the Coalition's mission had been completed exactly as their mysterious benefactors had planned. But in every timeline, the result was the same. Dimensional barriers weakened to the breaking point, and something vast and hungry pressing against the boundaries of existence itself. "The tears are expanding," Piccolo observed grimly, his Namekian sensitivity to planetary energy allowing him to perceive details that others missed. "At this rate, the dimensional barriers will collapse completely within the hour. Then we need to seal them," Goku said, though his enhanced cosmic awareness was already calculating the energy requirements. "But doing so will require what?" Vegeta demanded, his royal pride warring with the growing evidence that his mission had been based on lies. "What aren't you telling us, Kakarot?" Before Goku could answer, Perfect Cell's multiple copies began to flicker and merge back into a single form. His enhanced awareness, born from absorbing beings across 17 different timelines, was processing implications that terrified even his engineered consciousness. "The energy signature from beyond the tears," Cell said, his usual predatory confidence replaced by something approaching awe. "It's not just alien. It's not even from this dimensional framework. That thing exists in the spaces between realities, and it's been orchestrating these events to create exactly this situation." "What kind of thing?" Krillin asked, though his voice shook with the instinctive terror of a mortal being confronted with cosmic-level threats. "The kind that feeds on dimensional instability," Goku replied, his mind racing through possible solutions while his enhanced senses tracked the entity's growing influence. "Every battle we've fought, every technique we've demonstrated, every moment of timeline convergence, it's all been strengthening the barriers between dimensions to the point where they're ready to collapse." "Weakening, not strengthening," he corrected himself. "My cosmic terminology is getting confused under stress." "Then how do we stop it?" Master Roshi demanded, though his centuries of experience had already given him a grim understanding of the answer. "By doing exactly what it doesn't want," Goku said quietly. "By stabilizing the dimensional barriers through controlled energy release rather than chaotic combat. But that means..." He paused, knowing that his next words would change everything. The coalition members were listening, their temporary paralysis having worn off enough to allow movement, but not enough to resume hostilities. Earth's defenders were watching with the desperate hope of people who understood they were facing extinction. And somewhere in the spaces between realities, an entity of incomprehensible hunger was preparing to finally feed. That means revealing power levels that will attract attention from every cosmic authority in the multiverse, Goku finished. The moment I generate enough energy to seal those tears, everyone will know exactly what I am and what I'm capable of. And what are you? Vegeta asked, his voice carrying a complexity of emotion that transcended simple curiosity. I'm what the Grand Zano created to fight things that exist outside the normal boundaries of existence, Goku replied honestly. A mortal with divine-level capabilities, trained by cosmic entities, and reincarnated with the specific purpose of defending reality itself from threats that conventional power can't address. The admission hung in the air like a physical weight. Android 19's sensors immediately began recalibrating, trying to process energy readings that suggested impossible combinations of mortal and divine characteristics. Cell's enhanced awareness started comparing Goku's current signature to the 17 different timeline variants he had absorbed, finding matches that shouldn't exist. Most significantly, Vegeta's scouter began producing readings that made no sense according to any known physics. Impossible, the Saiyan Prince breathed. Your power level, it's not just hiding. It's existing in multiple states simultaneously. Quantum superposition applied to energy generation, Android 19 confirmed, his mechanical voice carrying undertones of system strain. Subject appears to possess baseline power appropriate to apparent age, but dimensional analysis indicates potential energy release exceeding theoretical maximums for mortal entities. How is that possible? Nappa demanded, his enhanced tactical awareness struggling to process information that contradicted everything he thought he understood about power scaling. Because I've learned to exist in multiple realities simultaneously, Goku explained as he began the complex process of preparing for dimensional barrier restoration. The Silent God Complete technique doesn't just hide power. It allows me to access strength from probability states that haven't collapsed into fixed reality yet. The tears in spacetime pulsed with malevolent energy, and through them came a sound that bypassed the ears entirely and resonated directly in the consciousness of every living being within 100 kilometers. The sound of infinite hunger, patient but growing impatient, accompanied by psychic pressure that made reality itself seem fragile and temporary. It knows, Goku realized with growing alarm. The entity beyond the tears can sense that I'm preparing to seal the dimensional barriers. It's going to try to prevent me from completing the technique. The attack came not from the coalition members, who were still struggling to understand their true situation, but from the tears themselves. Tendrils of absolute darkness began reaching through the fractures in reality, not just the absence of light, but the negation of existence itself. Whatever they touched simply ceased, leaving gaps in spacetime that expanded like wounds in the fabric of the universe. Everyone back, Goku shouted as he moved to intercept the tendrils. Don't let them touch you. Those things don't just kill, they erase. His first contact with the darkness was like grasping liquid entropy. The Silent God Complete technique activated automatically, compressing his power to levels that could resist absolute negation, but the strain was enormous. Fighting something that existed outside reality required energy configurations that pushed even his cosmic-trained abilities to their limits. This is why the Grand Zano authorized my rebirth. He understood as he struggled to contain tendrils that sought to unmake everything they encountered. Conventional divine power operates within reality's framework. These entities exist outside that framework entirely, making them effectively immune to normal divine techniques. The battle was unlike anything in his memory. Instead of trading blows with physical opponents, he was wrestling with concepts made manifest: entropy, negation, the active principle of unbeing itself. Each moment of contact threatened to erase not just his body, but his existence across all timelines simultaneously. But gradually, impossibly, his cosmic training began to provide advantages. King Kai's lessons in dimensional manipulation allowed him to create pockets of stable reality around himself. The Grand Zano's modifications to his reincarnated soul gave him the ability to maintain coherent existence even when touched by absolute negation. Most importantly, his experience fighting cosmic-level threats provided the strategic thinking necessary to battle enemies that couldn't be defeated through conventional means. The tendrils are retreating, Piccolo observed as Goku managed to force the darkness back through the dimensional tears. But the tears themselves are still expanding. Because this was never about direct assault, Goku replied, his breathing heavy from the exertion of fighting outside reality's normal parameters. This was about weakening the barriers enough to create a permanent breach. Even if I drive back the tendrils, the damage to dimensional stability will continue spreading until something catastrophic occurs. Then fix it, Vegeta commanded, his royal authority reasserting itself despite the cosmic scope of the crisis. You claim divine-level capabilities, prove it. Fixing it means revealing everything, Goku warned. The moment I generate enough power to restore dimensional stability, every god of destruction, every angel, every cosmic entity monitoring this sector of reality will know exactly where I am and what I represent. And the alternative is watching reality collapse around us, Cell pointed out, his enhanced awareness having reached the same conclusion through different analytical processes. Hardly an improvement. Goku nodded grimly and began the most dangerous technique he had ever attempted, not just in this timeline, but across his entire existence, mortal and divine combined. Dimensional barrier restoration requires energy output equivalent to minor stellar formation, he calculated while beginning the complex preparations. But generating that much power in a child's body, even with cosmic modifications, risks destroying everything I'm trying to protect. The solution came from King Kai's most advanced lesson. The understanding that true power wasn't about generating more energy, but about using existing energy with perfect efficiency. Instead of trying to overpower the dimensional damage, he would restore the barriers by achieving perfect resonance with reality's underlying structure. Everyone needs to stand back, he announced as his energy began to rise for the first time since his rebirth. Not just physically, I mean everyone needs to retreat to at least a kilometer distance. What I'm about to do will generate effects that could be dangerous to anyone with enhanced ki sensitivity. What kind of effects? Master Roshi asked, though he was already moving to comply. The kind that announce to every cosmic power in the universe that Earth harbors someone with capabilities that exceed most minor deities, Goku replied, as he felt the familiar sensation of his true power beginning to manifest. But before he could complete the technique, Android 19 made a decision that changed everything. The artificial being, his sensors overwhelmed by readings that contradicted his programming, lunged forward with the desperate efficiency of a machine following its core directives. His energy absorption systems activated at maximum power, attempting to drain Goku's rising energy signature before it could reach dangerous levels. Absorption protocol engaged, Android 19 announced as his mechanical hands made contact with Goku's shoulders, initiating power transfer to internal reserves. For a moment, it seemed like the android's gambit might succeed. His absorption rate was impressive, designed to handle the energy output of powerful organic beings. But then his systems encountered something they had never been programmed to process, the divine nature of energy that had been modified by the Grand Zano himself. The malfunction was catastrophic and immediate. Instead of absorbing Goku's power, Android 19's systems began trying to absorb the concept of divinity itself. Sparks erupted from his joints as his circuitry overloaded, his vocal processors producing sounds that suggested machinery breaking down at the quantum level. Error, error, system overload. Energy signature contains impossible configurations. Divine class power in mortal framework. Contradiction cannot be processed. The android's form began to expand as his energy absorption system tried to contain power that operated under different physical laws than his programming understood. Within seconds, it became clear that catastrophic failure was inevitable. He's going to explode, Cell observed with clinical detachment. His absorption systems are trying to process divine energy through mechanical frameworks. The resulting contradiction will destroy his power core. Taking half the mountain with him, Piccolo added grimly. Goku made another split-second decision that revealed more of his true nature than any technique demonstration could have. Moving faster than quantum mechanics should have allowed, he grabbed the failing android and used instant transmission to teleport both of them high into Earth's atmosphere, far enough that the explosion wouldn't damage anything on the surface. Android 19 detonated with the force of a small nuclear weapon, his mechanical form unable to contain the contradictions his systems had tried to process. But instead of being destroyed by the blast, Goku used the explosion itself as a focusing lens for the dimensional restoration technique he had been preparing. The energy release was precisely what he needed, massive, controlled, and channeled through cosmic principles that allowed him to repair the tears in reality without generating additional dimensional instability. From the perspective of observers on the ground, it looked like he had somehow converted the android's destruction into a technique for fixing spacetime itself. When the light faded and Goku descended back to the beach, the tears in reality had been sealed completely. But the cost of the technique was written clearly in his transformed appearance. His hair had shifted to the distinctive red of the Super Saiyan God transformation. His eyes carried the deep crimson that marked divine ki saturation, and his energy signature now radiated the unmistakable presence of someone who had touched the power of the gods themselves. Most tellingly, he appeared to have grown several years older. The strain of channeling divine energy through a child's body had forced physical development to accommodate the power requirements. The silence that greeted his landing was profound. "That transformation," Vegeta whispered, his scouter producing readings that made no sense according to any known power scaling. "It's not just increased strength. Your entire energy framework has shifted to divine classification." Super Saiyan God, Cell identified, his absorbed memories from 17 timelines providing recognition of something that shouldn't exist for decades. "But that's impossible. The ritual requires 6 pure-hearted Saiyans, and you achieved it through solo transformation while maintaining mortal status." "I achieved it because the Grand Xano's modifications to my reincarnated soul included safeguards that allow me to access divine transformations without losing my essential humanity," Goku explained, though the strain of maintaining the form was enormous. "But you're right about one thing, this should be impossible." "Yet here you are," Master Roshi observed with the calm acceptance of someone who had witnessed the impossible so many times that it no longer surprised him. "Here I am," Goku agreed. "And unfortunately, the energy signature I just broadcasted across multiple dimensions will have attracted attention from every major power in the universe. We have maybe an hour before the first cosmic entities arrive to investigate." As if summoned by his words, multiple energy signatures began appearing at the edge of his enhanced perception. Some were approaching from deep space with the distinctive energy patterns of divine beings. Others were manifesting through dimensional travel that suggested angel-class transportation capabilities. But most concerning of all, several signatures carried the unmistakable resonance of other reincarnated beings, warriors from alternate timelines who had been granted similar second chances, and were now converging on Earth to either ally with or eliminate the source of the dimensional disturbances. "The preliminary battles are over," Goku announced as he allowed the Super Saiyan God transformation to fade, returning to his more normal appearance, but retaining the enhanced maturity that channeling divine power had forced upon his developing body. "What happens next will determine not just Earth's fate, but the stability of the entire multiverse." "What about us?" Vegeta demanded, gesturing to the coalition members who had been manipulated into serving as unwitting agents of entropy. "Our mission was based on lies, our intelligence was corrupted, and our actions nearly caused universal collapse. What happens to us now? That depends," Goku replied honestly. "Are you willing to help defend this reality against the entities that used you? Or are you going to maintain loyalty to forces that were prepared to sacrifice everything you've ever known to achieve their goals?" The question hung in the air as cosmic-level threats began their approach toward Earth. Some came as potential allies, drawn by curiosity about the being who had somehow achieved divine transformation while retaining mortality. Others approached as enemies, determined to eliminate what they saw as a dangerous anomaly in the universal order. But all of them were coming to the same conclusion: the temporal anomaly designation was inadequate. What existed on Earth was something unprecedented in cosmic history. A being with the power of gods, the heart of a mortal, and the strategic experience of someone who had already faced the end of everything once before. The real war for reality's survival was about to begin. And somewhere in the spaces between dimensions, entities of incomprehensible hunger were stirring, drawn by the scent of power that transcended normal reality. The dimensional barriers had been restored, but the attention Goku's transformation had attracted would soon provide new opportunities for chaos and instability. His second genesis had just entered its most dangerous phase. The god had been unveiled, and every power in the multiverse was now aware that Earth harbored something that could change the fundamental balance of existence itself. The countdown to ultimate conflict had begun. The ripples from Goku's Super Saiyan God transformation spread across the universe like waves through cosmic fabric, reaching sensors and divine awareness in every corner of existence. On a distant planet where the god of destruction Beerus slept, surrounded by the ethereal calm of his temple, the first tremors of unprecedented power began to disturb his cosmic dreams. Lord Beerus, Whis called softly, his staff tapping against the marble floor of the temple with delicate precision. The angel's usual serene expression carried undertones of genuine concern as he studied readings that defied conventional understanding. I'm afraid something rather extraordinary has occurred. The destroyer deity stirred, his feline features creased with the irritation of someone whose rest had been interrupted by cosmic disturbances. What now, Whis? If it's another planet requesting destruction authorization, file it with the others. I was having the most wonderful dream about custard. I'm afraid this is somewhat more urgent than custard, my lord, Whis replied with that perfect blend of respect and gentle correction that marked their centuries of partnership. I've detected an energy signature from the seventh universe that shouldn't exist. Someone has achieved ultra instinct mastery while maintaining mortal classification. That got Beerus's attention immediately. The god of destruction sat up with the fluid grace that belied his massive power, purple eyes suddenly focused with predatory intensity. Ultra instinct, from a mortal, that's impossible, Whis. You know as well as I do that technique is restricted to angels and beings who have transcended normal divine hierarchy. Indeed, Whis agreed, manipulating his staff to display a three-dimensional projection of energy readings that pulsed with familiar patterns. Yet the signature is unmistakable, perfect autonomous movement combined with divine key saturation, but contained within a biological framework that registers as fundamentally mortal. Beerus studied the projection with growing amazement. The readings showed not just ultra-instinct mastery, but something even more intriguing, energy patterns that suggested the wielder had access to multiple divine transformations, while somehow maintaining the growth potential that marked mortal status. Where? The destroyer demanded. Earth, Whis replied. The same planet where we discovered that delicious Earth food during our last visit. The same world that's been generating increasingly unusual energy signatures for the past several months. Earth, Beerus mused, his memory providing flashes of blue skies, abundant food, and most importantly, the promise of eventually meeting a being called the Super Saiyan God. Didn't the oracle fish mention something about a prophetic warrior from that world? Someone who would provide me with genuine entertainment in battle. The oracle fish's prophecies have proven remarkably accurate, Whis confirmed. But this reading suggests something beyond even prophetic expectations. My lord, this energy signature indicates someone with combat experience that spans cosmic-level encounters. Not a promising student, but a master operating under some form of limitation. The implications hit Beerus like a physical blow. A mortal with ultra-instinct mastery and cosmic-level combat experience could only mean one thing. Someone had achieved reincarnation with complete memory retention. Something that should be impossible without direct authorization from the Grand Zano himself. We're going to Earth, Beerus announced, rising with sudden purpose. Now, before every other cosmic entity in the universe decides to investigate this anomaly. As you wish, my lord, Whis replied, though his expression suggested he had been expecting exactly this reaction. Though I should mention that we won't be the only interested parties. My staff has been detecting multiple dimensional transportation signatures converging on Earth's location. It appears that news of this development is spreading rather quickly through cosmic circles. Meanwhile, in the cold depths of space, aboard a massive command vessel that dwarfed entire solar systems, Emperor Frieza sat upon his throne reviewing intelligence reports that had been flooding in for the past hour. Each report painted the same impossible picture. Energy readings from Earth that suggested the presence of someone with power levels approaching his own golden form, combined with combat techniques that shouldn't exist for any known species. Zarbon, Frieza's voice carried the deceptive calm that his subordinates had learned to fear more than his obvious rage. Explain to me how a backwater planet that barely registers on our civilization indices suddenly harbors someone with power readings that rival my own. The blue-skinned warrior approached with the careful precision of someone delivering potentially fatal news. My lord, our intelligence sources suggest this isn't a native development. The energy signatures match theoretical profiles for something called reincarnated consciousness, the transfer of memories and abilities from one timeline to another. Reincarnation, Frieza repeated, his golden eyes glittering with interest rather than anger. How fascinating, and you believe this? Reincarnated being possesses combat capabilities that could threaten our empire. The preliminary readings suggest someone with experience fighting cosmic-level threats, Dodoria interjected, his pink bulk trembling slightly with the effort of delivering such disturbing intelligence. Emperor, if these reports are accurate, we're not dealing with another upstart warrior. We're dealing with someone who has already mastered techniques that take most beings millennia to develop. Frieza's laughter was like breaking crystal, beautiful and sharp enough to cut. Then we have a rare opportunity, don't we? Instead of another tedious conquest, we face the possibility of acquiring power that rivals the gods themselves. Zarbon, Dodoria, prepare the fleet. We're going to Earth. The entire fleet, my lord, Zarbon asked carefully. The entire empire, if necessary, Frieza confirmed. But not for destruction, for recruitment. Someone with that kind of power is either going to serve me willingly or provide the ultimate challenge I've been seeking for decades. But as Frieza's massive armada began its journey toward Earth, another ship was already entering the solar system, a vessel that had been traveling through dimensional space for months, following energy trails that led to the source of timeline convergences. Aboard this ship, a being who should have been impossible was reviewing combat data with mechanical precision. Captain Jinyu studied his reflection in the polished metal of his quarters wall, but the face looking back wasn't the purple-skinned warrior who had once led the Jinyu force. Instead, he saw features that belonged to a Saiyan, specifically, the Saiyan whose body he had stolen in an alternate timeline and successfully retained through dimensional travel techniques. Perfect, he murmured, flexing hands that contained power levels beyond his original form's wildest dreams. 3 months of dimensional jumping, 6 different timeline variants explored, and finally I've tracked down the source of the energy signatures that match my stolen capabilities. In timeline Gamma-7, Captain Jinyu's body-switching technique had succeeded beyond his original expectations. Not only had he successfully taken Goku's form, but the trauma of the process had somehow allowed him to retain access to all of Goku's memories and techniques. The result was a being with Jinyu's tactical intelligence, complete knowledge of Saiyan fighting methods, and access to transformations that made him one of the most dangerous entities in the known universe. "Computer," he commanded, his voice carrying authority that his original form had never possessed. "Display current power level analysis." "Captain Jinyu," the ship's AI responded, "your current battle power exceeds 150 million units in base form, with access to transformation multipliers that could theoretically reach divine classification levels. However, energy readings from Earth suggest the presence of someone with even greater capabilities." "The original," Jinyu mused, studying tactical projections of Earth's defensive capabilities. "Or more accurately, another version of the original. The question is whether this Goku has the same techniques I absorbed, or whether timeline differences have created variations I haven't encountered." The prospect was intoxicating. In every reality he had visited, Jinyu had been the strongest being on any given planet. But Earth promised something different, a worthy opponent who might actually understand the full scope of the power he now wielded. "Set course for Earth's moon," he commanded. "I want to observe the target's capabilities before revealing myself. And prepare the dimensional anchor. If this encounter goes badly, I want the option of retreating to an alternate timeline where the odds are more favorable." On Earth itself, the aftermath of Goku's transformation was creating ripples through the planet's spiritual community that extended far beyond the immediate battle site. In temples across the world, monks and mystics found their meditation disrupted by visions of golden light and power that transcended normal understanding. Ancient artifacts began resonating with energy patterns that hadn't been active for millennia. Most significantly, every person on Earth with even rudimentary key sensitivity had experienced the same moment of cosmic awareness, a brief glimpse of power that existed on scales beyond human comprehension. Master Shen, the crane hermit, stood on his mountain compound staring at instruments that registered impossible readings from the direction of Kame House. His rivalry with Master Roshi had persisted for decades, but the energy signatures his equipment was detecting suggested that such petty conflicts were about to become irrelevant. "Tao," he called to his brother, who was examining similar readings with professional interest. "What do you make of these power levels?" The world's greatest assassin studied the data with the clinical precision that had made him legendary among those who dealt in death. "Brother, these readings suggest someone with capabilities that exceed anything in our experience. If the source is indeed at Roshi's location, then either he's been hiding his true abilities for centuries, or he's acquired a student whose potential defies rational explanation. Or," Master Shen said quietly, "something has appeared on Earth that transforms our understanding of what martial arts can achieve." Similar conversations were taking place in secret facilities around the globe. Dr. Brief at Capsule Corporation found his most advanced sensors registering energy patterns that suggested localized spacetime distortions. The world's military forces detected atmospheric disturbances that resembled nuclear detonations, but without the associated radiation signatures. Most disturbing of all, several governments received reports from their most classified monitoring stations about impossible aircraft appearing in Earth's atmosphere, ships whose technology exceeded anything in terrestrial development by centuries. But the most significant reaction came from someone much closer to Goku's location. Fortune teller Baba materialized on the beach outside the rebuilt Kame house with the dramatic flair that marked her appearances, her crystal ball glowing with energy that resonated with the residual divine ki still saturating the area. Her ancient eyes, which had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, held a mixture of awe and concern that made everyone present pay attention immediately. "Well, well," she said, her voice carrying undertones of cosmic awareness that transcended her usual mystical theatrics. The Saiyan child who reads like a god, surrounded by enemies who have become allies and allies who don't understand what they're protecting. "Baba," Master Roshi said respectfully, recognizing both her genuine mystical abilities and her connection to cosmic forces beyond normal understanding. "What do you see?" "I see trouble approaching from 17 different directions," Baba replied, manipulating her crystal ball to display images that made everyone present step back in alarm. Divine entities, empire fleets, dimensional travelers, and things that exist in the spaces between realities, all converging on this location because someone decided to broadcast his true nature across multiple universes. The images in her crystal ball were deeply disturbing. Massive ships approaching from deep space, beings of impossible power traveling through dimensional portals, and most concerning of all, tears in reality itself that suggested something was actively trying to break through from outside normal existence. "How long do we have?" Goku asked, though his enhanced senses were already providing partial answers. "For the first wave, 6 hours, Baba replied grimly. "For the really dangerous visitors, perhaps a day. And for the entities that exist outside normal reality, they're already here, watching from spaces that don't technically exist." "Then we need to prepare," Piccolo announced, his strategic mind immediately shifting to defensive planning. "Goku, your transformation revealed capabilities that will attract every major power in the universe. We need to assume that everyone approaching Earth has detailed intelligence about your abilities and has prepared countermeasures accordingly." "Agreed," Vegeta said, surprising everyone present. The Saiyan Prince's energy signature had shifted subtly since witnessing Goku's divine transformation, not to hostility, but to something approaching professional respect. "Kakarot, I don't pretend to understand the cosmic forces you represent, but I recognize strategic necessity when I see it. Whatever's coming for this planet is coming because of what you are, but it's also coming for resources that extend beyond just capturing you." "What do you mean?" Krillin asked. "He means that Earth itself has become strategically significant," Cell interjected, his enhanced awareness providing insights born from absorbed memories of 17 different timeline variants. "A planet that harbors someone with divine-level capabilities while maintaining dimensional stability becomes valuable to forces operating on cosmic scales. They're not just coming for Goku, they're coming to establish control over a world that could serve as a base of operations for multiversal conflicts." The implications were staggering. Earth wasn't just facing invasion. It was about to become the center of conflicts that spanned multiple realities, with every major power in the universe wanting to either recruit or eliminate the source of the dimensional disturbances. "Then we make them regret it," Goku said quietly, his voice carrying an authority that transcended his still youthful appearance. "Every entity approaching this planet is operating on the assumption that they understand what they're dealing with. Let's make sure they discover how wrong they are." But even as he spoke, his enhanced senses detected the first arrivals. A ship had just entered Earth's atmosphere, moving with stealth technology that would have been undetectable to normal sensors but was clearly visible to his cosmic awareness. The energy signatures aboard were familiar, Zarbon and Dodoria, leading an advanced team for what could only be Frieza's forces. More concerning was the second ship, approaching from the opposite direction with dimensional distortion patterns that suggested its occupant possessed abilities similar to his own. Someone who had successfully traveled between timelines and was now coming to Earth with detailed knowledge of his capabilities. "They're here," he announced grimly. "The preliminary forces, at least, and one of them." One of them feels like me, like my energy signature but twisted somehow. Another reincarnated being? Master Roshi asked. Worse, Goku replied as his enhanced perception provided more disturbing details. Someone who has my memories and techniques, but without the ethical framework that comes from earning them through proper training and experience. The battle for Earth's future was about to begin in earnest. But this time, the stakes extended beyond just planetary survival. With cosmic entities, divine beings, and dimensional travelers all converging on one location, the coming conflict would determine not just Earth's fate, but the fundamental balance of power across multiple realities. As the first enemy ships began their descent, Goku felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling around him like a familiar burden. His second genesis had attracted attention from forces beyond anything he had faced in his original existence, but it had also provided him with capabilities that could meet such challenges. The question was whether he could protect everyone he cared about while facing enemies who understood his true nature better than most of his allies did. The divine attention he had attracted was about to test everything he had learned about the difference between power and wisdom, between strength and responsibility, between being the strongest and being strong enough to save everyone. The real war was beginning, and its outcome would echo across the entire multiverse. In the distance, more ships appeared as pinpricks of light against the stars, each one carrying threats that would have terrified the Goku of his original timeline. But this Goku had been forged in battles that transcended individual realities, trained by entities that existed outside normal physics, and granted a second chance by the supreme authority of existence itself. He was ready. The first sign that something beyond normal cosmic attention was approaching Earth came not through Goku's enhanced senses or fortune teller Baba's mystical awareness, but through a phenomenon that transcended both physical and metaphysical detection. Reality itself began to settle, as if the fundamental laws of physics were adjusting themselves in preparation for the presence of something that existed on a completely different scale of existence. "Do you feel that?" Piccolo asked, his Namekian sensitivity to planetary energy allowing him to perceive the subtle but profound changes occurring in Earth's dimensional framework. "It's like the universe is rearranging itself around us." "Someone's coming," Goku confirmed, though his cosmic awareness was struggling to comprehend what his senses were reporting. The approaching presence wasn't just powerful, it existed in a state of perfect harmony with the fundamental forces that governed reality itself. Someone whose very existence causes space-time to optimize itself for maximum stability. Before anyone could ask what that meant, a figure materialized on the beach with the casual ease of someone stepping through a doorway. But instead of the violent energy discharges that typically accompanied such dramatic arrivals, his appearance was marked by an almost supernatural calm that made the air itself seem more peaceful. Whis stood before them with his characteristic serene smile, his staff planted gently in the sand as if he were merely a traveler who had stopped to admire the ocean view. His robes moved with a grace that suggested they existed partially outside normal physics, and his eyes held depths that spoke of awareness spanning multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Good afternoon," he said pleasantly, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated directly in their consciousness rather than simply through their ears. "I hope you don't mind the unannounced visit, but I've been detecting some rather fascinating energy signatures from this location." The silence that greeted his arrival was profound. Master Roshi, despite his centuries of experience with powerful beings, found himself instinctively bowing in the presence of authority that transcended anything he had encountered. The coalition members, Vegeta, Cell, and the others, stood frozen with the recognition that whatever classification they had assigned to cosmic power hierarchies was completely inadequate. But it was Goku who stepped forward with the respectful composure of someone who understood exactly what and who he was facing. "Lord Whis," he said, bowing with genuine reverence. "It's an honor to meet you again." "Again?" Whis' eyebrows rose with polite curiosity, though his expression suggested he already knew far more than he was revealing. "How interesting. Most mortals don't retain memories of encounters with angels after dimensional barriers are restored. Yet you speak with the familiarity of someone who has experienced such meetings personally." He knows, Goku realized. Not just about my reincarnation, but about the specific circumstances that led to it. The question is how much he's willing to reveal in front of the others. "I've had unique experiences with cosmic entities," Goku replied carefully. "Experiences that have given me perspective on the broader responsibilities that come with exceptional power." "Indeed," Wee's smile widened slightly, and suddenly the beach around them expanded into what appeared to be a pocket dimension. A space that existed separate from normal reality, where their conversation could proceed without affecting the physical world. Then you won't mind if I test the depth of that perspective. Everyone present found themselves standing in a realm that defied description, not quite empty space, not quite solid ground, but something that accommodated whatever form of existence they required. Wheeze had created a perfect neutral environment where beings of vastly different power levels could interact without the usual concerns about collateral damage or dimensional instability. "What kind of test?" Piccolo asked, though his voice carried the wariness of someone who understood that angels operated according to standards that mortals could barely comprehend. "Nothing destructive," Wheeze assured him with that perfect blend of authority and gentleness that marked his nature. "Simply a conversation, really. But a conversation that will reveal whether young Goku here possesses the wisdom necessary to justify the unprecedented circumstances of his existence." The weight of that statement settled over everyone like a physical presence. This wasn't just about power levels or combat techniques. This was about fundamental questions of cosmic responsibility and the moral authority required to wield abilities that transcended normal limitations. "You know about my rebirth," Goku said, not asking but stating a conclusion that his cosmic awareness had reached. "I know about the decision to authorize your reincarnation with complete memory retention," Whis confirmed. "I know about the modifications the Grand Zano made to your spiritual structure to accommodate divine-level abilities within a mortal framework. Most importantly, I know about the cosmic necessity that made such unprecedented measures not just acceptable, but essential." "Cosmic necessity," Master Roshi interjected, his centuries of studying martial arts philosophy having given him some understanding of how cosmic balance operated. "What kind of threat could justify breaking fundamental rules about reincarnation and divine authority?" Whi's expression grew serious, not alarmed, but carrying the weight of someone explaining concepts that mortals weren't typically prepared to comprehend. "The kind that exists in the spaces between realities, feeding on dimensional instability and growing stronger whenever timelines intersect. The kind that conventional divine power cannot address because it operates outside the framework of individual universes entirely." The revelation sent chills through everyone present, but Goku felt something deeper, recognition of truths he had suspected but never fully understood. "The void entities," he breathed. "That's what they're called, isn't it? The things that exist in the spaces between dimensions, waiting for reality to become unstable enough for them to feed." "Very good," Whis nodded approvingly. "Most beings never encounter such entities directly, and those who do rarely survive to report the experience. But you speak with the certainty of someone who has not just encountered them, but understood their true nature." "I fought them," Goku admitted, his memories providing flashes of battles that had transcended individual realities. "In my final existence before rebirth, when the barriers between dimensions began collapsing, they were there, waiting, feeding on the chaos and growing stronger with each reality that fell." "And how did those encounters end?" Whis asked, though his tone suggested this was the crucial question that would determine everything that followed. "Badly," Goku said honestly. "Conventional power, even divine-level abilities, truly harmed them because they existed outside the frameworks that govern normal existence. The most I could do was contain them temporarily while reality restructured itself around the damage they had caused." "Which brings us to the true purpose of your rebirth," Whis said, beginning to pace in the weightless environment he had created. "The Grand Zano's decision wasn't simply about giving you a second chance at life. It was about creating a warrior capable of fighting enemies that exist outside the normal boundaries of existence. But I had divine power in my previous life," Goku pointed out. "Ultra instinct, access to destruction techniques, even temporary fusion with cosmic entities. If those abilities couldn't defeat the void entities, what makes anyone think reincarnation would provide better options?" "Because," Whis replied with infinite patience, "divine power alone was never the solution. The void entities feed on dimensional instability, which means they grow stronger when reality is damaged by conflicts between powerful beings. Fighting them with raw power, even cosmic-level power, actually makes them more dangerous." The implication hit Goku like a physical blow. "Then how? By achieving perfect balance," Whis explained. "Power without wisdom leads to the kind of conflicts that create dimensional instability. Wisdom without power leads to noble intentions that cannot address cosmic-level threats. But a being who possesses both ultimate power and the wisdom that comes from experiencing loss, growth, and genuine responsibility for others. Such a being could potentially stabilize reality while fighting entities that exist outside it. That's why the rebirth included complete memory retention, Goku understood with growing clarity. Not just to give me tactical advantages, but to ensure I retain the emotional and philosophical development that came from living a full existence dedicated to protecting others. But there's still the question, Whis continued, his cosmic awareness focusing on Goku with uncomfortable intensity, of whether you have truly integrated that wisdom, or whether you're simply a powerful being with access to ancient memories. The test, when it came, was unlike anything Goku had expected. Instead of a physical challenge or a demonstration of technique, Whis created something far more complex, a scenario that would reveal the true nature of Goku's character. Reality around them shifted, and suddenly they were standing in a perfect replica of Earth during the final moments before universal collapse. Goku could see his friends, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, and countless others, fighting desperately against void entities that were systematically consuming everything they had ever known. This is a memory reconstruction, Whis explained, his voice coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The final battle from your previous existence, replayed with perfect accuracy. But this time, you have knowledge of the outcome and the power to potentially change it. The scenario was devastating in its emotional impact. Goku watched himself from his previous existence fighting with desperate courage against entities that couldn't be truly defeated, knowing that every moment of battle was making them stronger, while his friends died around him in a conflict they didn't understand. The question, Whis continued, is what you would choose to do differently, knowing what you now know about the true nature of these threats. It was a test of wisdom disguised as a tactical problem. The obvious answer was to use his enhanced power and cosmic knowledge to achieve victory through superior force. But Goku's reborn understanding recognized the trap in that approach. More power would only create more dimensional instability, feeding the very enemies he was trying to defeat. I wouldn't fight them, he said quietly, watching his past self pour everything into attacks that only made the situation worse. You would abandon your friends, Whis asked, though his tone held no judgment, only curiosity about Goku's reasoning. I would save them through a different kind of strength, Goku replied, his cosmic awareness providing insights that his previous existence had lacked. The void entities feed on dimensional chaos, which means they can only exist in realities that have been damaged by excessive conflicts. Instead of fighting them directly, I would focus on stabilizing reality itself, creating such perfect dimensional harmony that they couldn't maintain coherence in our space. And how would you achieve such stabilization while your friends fought and died around you? By accepting the ultimate responsibility, Goku said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine understanding. By using my power not to destroy the entities, but to merge temporarily with the dimensional framework itself, becoming part of reality's structure long enough to repair the damage and force the void entities back into the spaces between dimensions where they belong. At what personal cost? Whis pressed. Complete ego dissolution, Goku admitted. Temporary loss of individual identity as my consciousness merged with universal principles. The risk that I might not be able to separate myself from cosmic forces afterward, effectively ceasing to exist as an individual being. The test scenario faded, leaving them in the neutral space where their conversation had begun. But Whis' expression had shifted to something approaching profound satisfaction. Excellent, he said with genuine approval. You understand that true strength isn't about what you can destroy, but about what you're willing to sacrifice to protect others. More importantly, you understand that some battles can only be won by transcending the desire for victory itself. Does that mean I passed your test? Goku asked. It means you've demonstrated the wisdom that justifies your unprecedented rebirth, Whis replied. But it also means you're ready for training that will prepare you for challenges even your cosmic experience hasn't encompassed. The offer hung in the air like a tangible presence. Training with Whis, education that would elevate his abilities beyond anything he had achieved in his previous existence, but would also attract attention from cosmic entities that viewed such development as a potential threat to universal stability. What kind of training? Goku asked, though his strategic mind was already calculating the implications. Dimensional harmony techniques, Whis explained. Methods for fighting entities that exist outside normal reality without creating the instability they feed on. Combat applications of cosmic balance that would allow you to face void entities on equal terms while maintaining the dimensional stability necessary to protect entire realities. And the cost? Your training would require temporary separation from Earth while you learn to exist partially outside normal spacetime, Whis said honestly. During that period, this planet would be vulnerable to the various forces currently converging on it. Your friends would have to face cosmic-level threats without your protection. The classic dilemma, Goku thought. Gain the power necessary to protect everyone by leaving them temporarily defenseless, or stay and face enemies I'm not adequately prepared for. There is, however, an alternative, Whis continued. I could provide accelerated training while maintaining your connection to this dimensional framework. But such compressed education would attract the attention of other angels, gods of destruction, and cosmic entities who might view your development as a threat requiring immediate containment. Meaning your training itself would become a catalyst for conflicts that could destroy this reality before you're ready to defend it properly. Whis explained with the patient precision of someone laying out complex strategic parameters. The choice is yours. Leave Earth to face its challenges alone while you prepare for greater threats, or remain and risk triggering conflicts that exceed your current capabilities. Before Goku could answer, his enhanced senses detected multiple energy signatures breaching Earth's atmosphere simultaneously. The various forces that had been approaching were arriving in coordinated waves. Frieza's advanced scouts, dimensional travelers carrying stolen abilities, and most concerning of all, tears in reality that suggested void entities were testing the barriers between dimensions. It seems the decision period has ended, Whis observed calmly. Your enemies have chosen the timing of this confrontation for you. Then I'll face them here, Goku decided. With whatever preparation I have, whatever allies I can gather, and whatever wisdom I've gained from both lifetimes. If these entities want to test someone who's touched divine power while maintaining mortal responsibility, they're about to discover what that combination is capable of. Whis nodded with approval that transcended simple satisfaction. Very well, but understand, what happens next will determine not just Earth's fate, but the fundamental balance between order and chaos across multiple realities. Your choices in the coming battle will echo through dimensions you've never seen, affecting beings you'll never meet. As the pocket dimension dissolved around them, returning everyone to the beach outside Kame House, the full scope of the approaching crisis became clear. Ships were descending from orbit with the precision of military operations. Energy signatures were appearing through dimensional tiers with the consistency of coordinated assault. Most ominously, the sky itself was beginning to show stress patterns that indicated reality was approaching its tolerance limits for supporting so many powerful entities simultaneously. The real war begins now, Whis announced, though his tone carried more anticipation than concern. And unlike previous conflicts you've experienced, this battle will require not just victory, but the wisdom to achieve victory in ways that don't create even greater problems. The angel stepped backward through dimensions, not leaving but positioning himself to observe without interfering. His test was complete, but his interest in the outcome was profound. For the first time in eons, he was watching someone who possessed both the power to reshape reality and the wisdom to understand why such power should be used carefully. The multiple forces converging on Earth were about to discover that raw power, stolen abilities, and even cosmic authority meant nothing when facing someone who had learned to fight not for victory, but for the protection of everything worth preserving. Goku's second Genesis had prepared him for this moment, not just through enhanced abilities, but through understanding that true strength came from accepting responsibility for outcomes that extended far beyond personal survival. The ultimate test of that understanding was about to begin, and somewhere in the spaces between realities, ancient entities stirred with anticipation, sensing that the dimensional barriers were about to be tested by conflicts that would either strengthen the foundations of existence or create opportunities for feeding on an unprecedented scale. The fate of multiple realities hung in the balance, and the outcome would be determined by whether one reborn Saiyan could prove that wisdom and power, properly integrated, could triumph over forces that existed beyond the boundaries of individual universes. The angel's test was complete, but the universe's test of Goku's worthiness was just beginning. The invasion fleet that darkened Earth's skies was unlike anything in the recorded history of galactic warfare. Frieza's command ship alone dwarfed most space stations, its hull incorporating technology from dozens of conquered civilizations and radiating energy signatures that suggested weapons capable of stellar destruction. But surrounding the massive vessel was something even more ominous. Hundreds of smaller ships carrying warriors whose power levels should have been impossible to gather in a single location. Goku stood on the beach outside Kame House, his enhanced senses cataloging threats that spanned multiple realities. Each ship carried energy signatures that told stories of conquest across different timelines, warriors who had been recruited not just for their power, but for their specific knowledge of fighting techniques that shouldn't exist yet. Strategic deployment, he observed grimly, watching the fleet assume positions that spoke of extensive intelligence gathering. They're not here for a quick conquest. This is a siege formation designed to contain and extract. Extract what? Krillin asked, though his voice carried the strain of someone who already suspected the answer. Me, Goku replied simply, but also something more complex. Frieza isn't just trying to capture the temporal anomaly, he's trying to establish Earth as a forward base for operations that span multiple timelines. Vegeta, who had remained silent since Whis' departure, finally spoke with the analytical precision of someone whose royal heritage included strategic military training. The ship configurations suggest this isn't even the full extent of his forces. Those vessels are designed for extended operations, not quick strikes. Frieza is prepared to occupy this planet for months if necessary. Before anyone could respond to this assessment, the air around them began to vibrate with the harmonics of massive energy generation. The flagship's primary communication array activated, projecting a holographic image above the beach that was visible from orbit. A display of power and technology that announced Frieza's presence to every being within a 1,000-kilometer radius. The hologram showed the interior of the command ship's throne room, where Frieza sat in golden splendor that spoke of power beyond his original timeline's capabilities. But beside him stood a figure that made Goku's blood run cold. Another Frieza, identical in appearance but radiating energy patterns that suggested fundamental alterations to his basic nature. "Greetings, people of Earth," the original Frieza began, his voice carrying the deceptive politeness that had preceded the destruction of countless worlds. "I am Emperor Frieza, and I come seeking the anomalous being whose energy signatures have been disrupting dimensional stability across multiple sectors of space." Multiple Friezas, Piccolo breathed, his Namekian heritage providing him with cultural memories of exactly what the Emperor's family was capable of. This isn't just an invasion, it's a convergence of timeline variants. The second Frieza stepped forward, his golden form shimmering with energy patterns that defied normal physics. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," he said with a smile that contained galaxies of malice. "I am Frieza of Timeline Gamma-9, where my wish for immortality was granted before any troublesome Saiyans could interfere with my ascension to universal dominance." Immortal Golden Frieza, Goku's mind processed the implications. All of his power, all of his intelligence, all of his sadistic creativity, but with complete invulnerability to physical damage. This isn't just a stronger enemy, this is an enemy that can't be defeated through conventional means. "The terms of your surrender are simple," the original Frieza continued. "Deliver the reincarnated Saiyan to us for study and integration into our multiversal empire, and we will consider relocating your population to suitable worlds rather than simply eliminating them for convenience." "And if we refuse," Master Roshi called out, his voice carrying the quiet dignity of someone prepared to die fighting impossible odds. The immortal Frieza's laughter was like breaking crystal. "Then you will provide us with valuable combat data while we take what we came for anyway. Either outcome serves our purposes admirably." But before the conversation could continue, Goku's enhanced senses detected something that changed the entire tactical situation. The fleet above them wasn't just Frieza's forces. Embedded within the invasion armada were ships carrying energy signatures he recognized from his previous existence. Warriors who had been recruited from timelines where they had successfully conquered their respective realities, all brought together for this single operation. This isn't random, he realized aloud. Someone has been systematically recruiting the most dangerous versions of familiar enemies from across multiple timelines. Frieza Cell, the coalition members we fought earlier, they're all part of a coordinated strategy designed by someone who understands exactly what kind of opposition I represent. Who could coordinate something like this? Vegeta demanded, his royal strategic training allowing him to recognize the scope of planning required for such an operation. Someone with access to multiversal intelligence networks and the authority to recruit across dimensional boundaries, Goku replied grimly. Someone who views this reality as either a critical resource or an existential threat. The holographic communication continued, but now Goku was only half listening as his cosmic awareness provided increasingly disturbing information about the true extent of the forces arrayed against them. This wasn't just about capturing him anymore. This was about establishing Earth as a nexus point for conflicts that would span multiple realities. The preliminary negotiations are complete, the immortal Frieza announced with predatory satisfaction. Since no surrender has been offered, we will proceed with forced extraction protocols. Do try to provide adequate entertainment. It's been some time since we've faced opponents who required our full attention. The attack began with precision that spoke of extensive preparation specifically for this target. Instead of the overwhelming bombardment that had characterized Frieza's previous planetary assaults, this assault was surgical, designed to neutralize specific defensive capabilities while leaving the primary target intact for capture. Energy beams lanced down from orbit with targeting accuracy that suggested detailed knowledge of Earth's defender positions. But these weren't random attacks. Each beam was calibrated to counter specific techniques and power levels, as if the attackers had studied detailed intelligence reports on every individual present. "They know our capabilities," Piccolo observed as he deflected an energy blast that had been precisely calibrated to overwhelm his usual defensive techniques. "Not just our general power levels, they know our specific fighting styles and signature techniques. Because they've been watching," Goku realized as he moved to intercept attacks targeting his friends. "Not just recently, but across multiple timelines. They've studied every version of us that exists in different realities, analyzing our combat patterns and developing countermeasures." The first wave of attackers descended from the ships with coordinated precision that made their previous encounters seem like amateur efforts by comparison. Each warrior carried equipment designed to counter specific abilities: energy dampeners for Kai-based attacks, temporal stabilizers to prevent time manipulation, and most concerning of all, dimensional anchors that would prevent escape through teleportation techniques. Leading the assault was a figure that shouldn't have existed, Zarbon, but enhanced with technology that had elevated his power beyond anything his original timeline had achieved. Behind him came Dodoria, similarly upgraded, accompanied by warriors from a dozen different realities who had been recruited specifically for their knowledge of fighting Saiyan-type opponents. But it was the third figure that made Goku's strategic mind shift into crisis management mode. Captain Ginyu approached with the fluid confidence of someone who possessed abilities he had stolen rather than earned, his energy signature reading as an impossible fusion of his original tactical intelligence with power levels that rivaled Goku's own capabilities. "Fascinating," Ginyu said as he landed gracefully on the beach. "The body-switching technique worked even better than anticipated. Not only did I successfully acquire all of Kakarot's abilities from timeline Delta-7, but the dimensional travel required to reach this reality has allowed me to integrate techniques from multiple Saiyan variants." "He has my techniques," Goku realized with growing alarm. "Not just similar abilities, but the exact fighting methods I developed through decades of training and combat experience. This isn't just about facing a powerful enemy, this is about fighting someone who knows my capabilities better than I do." "How is that possible?" Krillin demanded, though his voice shook with the recognition that they were facing something beyond normal tactical parameters. "Simple," Ginyu replied with predatory satisfaction. "In timeline Delta-7, my body-switching technique succeeded completely. I gained Kakarot's form, his memories, his techniques, and most importantly, his growth potential. Then I spent years traveling between realities, absorbing combat knowledge from every Saiyan variant I could locate. The battle erupted with sudden violence that tested every defensive capability Earth's protectors possessed. But unlike previous encounters, this assault was characterized by perfect coordination between enemies who understood each other's abilities and had trained specifically to operate as a unified force. Zarbon engaged Piccolo with techniques that countered every defensive strategy the Namekian had ever developed. Dodoria attacked Vegeta with methods that exploited weaknesses in Saiyan physiology that shouldn't have been known to non-Saiyans. Most devastatingly, Captain Ginyu faced Goku with fighting techniques that were perfectly adapted to counter everything Goku might attempt. They're not just stronger, Goku realized as he struggled against an opponent who anticipated his every move. They're fighting with complete knowledge of our psychological patterns, our tactical preferences, and our technical limitations. This isn't a battle, it's a systematic dismantling of our capabilities. The situation became desperate when the immortal Frieza decided to participate directly rather than simply observing. His energy signature, as he descended from orbit, was unlike anything Goku had encountered in either existence. All of Golden Frieza's power, but with the absolute confidence that came from knowing that no attack could cause permanent damage. "Allow me to demonstrate the futility of resistance," the immortal emperor announced as he landed with force that cracked the beach for kilometers in every direction. "Observe what happens when ultimate power combines with absolute invulnerability." His assault was casual and devastating. Energy blasts that could level mountains were thrown like casual gestures, each one precisely aimed to force the defenders into impossible positions. But more disturbing than his raw power was his tactical approach. Instead of trying to overwhelm through force, he was systematically eliminating options until surrender became the only rational choice. "He's not trying to defeat us," Goku understood as he barely deflected an attack that would have vaporized half the continent. "He's demonstrating that defeat is inevitable, hoping to break our will to resist before we can develop effective countermeasures." The turning point came when Goku realized that conventional combat wasn't just ineffective, it was actively counterproductive. Every technique he used, every display of power, every strategic adaptation was being analyzed and cataloged by enemies who would use that information to develop better countermeasures. Fighting them with normal methods only gives them more data to work with, he understood. "What I need is something they can't analyze, something that operates outside the frameworks they've prepared for." The solution came from King Kai's most advanced lessons about the relationship between power and dimensional stability. Instead of trying to defeat his enemies through superior force, Goku would disrupt their fundamental connection to reality itself. "Everyone fall back," he announced, his voice carrying an authority that made even Vegeta comply without argument. "I'm going to try something that's never been attempted before, and I can't guarantee it won't affect everyone in the area." Temporal lock, he focused, drawing on cosmic awareness that extended beyond individual timelines. Not just a technique for freezing time, but a method for temporarily severing an enemy's connection to their origin timeline. The technique required understanding of multiversal physics that shouldn't have been possible for any mortal being. Goku had to identify the specific dimensional resonance that connected each enemy to their home reality, then create interference patterns that would disrupt those connections without damaging the underlying structure of space-time. But as he began the complex energy manipulations required, he realized the true scope of what he was attempting. Temporal lock didn't just affect individual enemies, it required him to temporarily merge his consciousness with the dimensional framework itself, operating as a living anchor point between multiple realities. This will work, he understood, as the technique began to take effect. But the energy expenditure will leave me vulnerable to conventional attacks for an extended period afterward. The effect was immediate and devastating for his enemies. Captain Ginyu, whose stolen abilities were dependent on his connection to timeline Delta-7, found his power levels dropping precipitously as his access to alternate reality techniques was severed. Zarbon and Dodoria, whose enhancements came from multiversal technology, discovered that their equipment was failing as its dimensional power sources were cut off. Most significantly, the immortal Frieza's invulnerability began to flicker as his connection to the timeline where he had gained immortality was temporarily disrupted. "Impossible," the immortal emperor gasped, his golden form wavering as fundamental aspects of his enhanced nature became unstable. "My immortality. It's connected to dimensional frameworks that shouldn't be accessible to mortal manipulation." "Everything is connected," Goku replied, though the strain of maintaining the temporal lock was enormous. "Power, enhancement, even immortality, it all depends on connections between consciousness and reality. Disrupt those connections, and even impossible abilities become vulnerable." The technique continued for exactly 97 seconds before Goku's energy reserves reached critical depletion. But in that brief window, Earth's defenders achieved something that should have been impossible. They defeated enemies whose capabilities exceeded their own through strategic disruption rather than overwhelming force. Captain Ginyu collapsed as his stolen Saiyan abilities were permanently severed from their dimensional source. Zarbon and Dodoria's enhanced equipment overloaded and shut down, leaving them with only their original power levels. Most importantly, the immortal Frieza found himself temporarily vulnerable to damage that could have lasting effects. "Now," Goku announced weakly, the temporal lock having drained reserves he had built up over months of training. "While their connections are severed, we can." He never finished the sentence. The energy expenditure from the temporal lock technique had left him operating at a fraction of his normal capabilities, and the original Frieza, who had been observing the battle from orbit rather than participating directly, chose that moment to launch his personal assault. "Impressive," the original emperor said as he descended with the casual grace of someone who had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. "You've successfully neutralized my most powerful assets through temporal manipulation that exceeds anything in my experience. But unfortunately for you, such techniques require energy reserves that no mortal being can sustain indefinitely." The golden transformation activated as Frieza hit the beach, his power signature reading as every bit as dangerous as his immortal counterpart, but with the tactical intelligence of someone who had spent decades planning for exactly this scenario. "Did you really think I would commit my most valuable forces without maintaining strategic reserves?" Frieza asked with amusement that contained galaxies of malice. The immortal variant and the enhanced subordinates were never meant to achieve victory. They were meant to force you into revealing capabilities that could then be countered by conventional methods. He planned this, Goku realized with growing horror. The entire assault was designed to force me into using the temporal lock technique, knowing that the energy expenditure would leave me vulnerable to a follow-up attack. The original Frieza's assault began with the casual efficiency of someone attacking a weakened opponent. Energy blasts that would normally be deflectable struck with devastating accuracy. Techniques that Goku would typically counter through superior speed overwhelmed his depleted reflexes. But as the Emperor pressed his advantage, expecting quick victory over an exhausted enemy, he discovered that Goku's cosmic training had included preparations for exactly this situation. Silent God Technique, Emergency Configuration, Goku activated a technique King Kai had taught him for operating at reduced power levels. Instead of trying to match Frieza's energy output, he would achieve victory through perfect technique and strategic timing. The battle that followed was unlike anything in Goku's experience. Fighting at a fraction of his normal power while facing an enemy operating at peak efficiency required tactical thinking that transcended simple combat techniques. Every movement had to be precisely calculated, every counterattack had to serve multiple purposes, every defensive action had to create opportunities for strategic advantage. But gradually, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Frieza's confidence in his tactical superiority was based on fighting enemies who relied primarily on raw power. But Goku's cosmic experience had taught him that true strength came from understanding how to achieve maximum effect through minimal energy expenditure. He's not fighting the opponent he prepared for, Goku realized as he used Frieza's own momentum to redirect his attacks. He expected to face someone who would try to overpower him despite energy depletion. Instead, he's fighting someone who can operate at peak efficiency, regardless of available power levels. The decisive moment came when Frieza, frustrated by his inability to quickly defeat a supposedly weakened opponent, committed to an all-out assault that would either achieve immediate victory or leave him temporarily vulnerable. Golden Frieza's power reached levels that distorted reality around them. Energy discharges that could destroy solar systems focused into attacks designed to overwhelm any possible defense. But instead of trying to block or deflect such overwhelming force, Goku did something that Frieza's tactical planning had never anticipated. He guided the attacks. Using techniques that combined cosmic awareness with perfect timing, Goku redirected Frieza's own energy into dimensional patterns that created feedback loops in the Emperor's power systems. The golden transformation, pushed beyond its sustainable limits by Frieza's own tactical choices, began to destabilize from within. "Impossible," Frieza gasped as his enhanced form flickered and failed. "My power levels. They're feeding back on themselves. How is this possible?" "Because you forgot the fundamental lesson about power," Goku replied as Frieza's golden transformation collapsed completely, leaving the Emperor in his base form and temporarily drained of the energy required for retransformation. "It's not about how much strength you have, it's about understanding how to use whatever strength you possess." The defeat of the original Frieza sent shockwaves through the invasion fleet that were both tactical and psychological. Their most powerful leader had been defeated by someone operating at severely reduced capabilities, which suggested that their intelligence about the target's limitations was fundamentally flawed. But as ships began retreating to regroup and reassess, Goku found himself facing a new crisis. The temporal lock technique had served its purpose perfectly, but the energy expenditure had left him operating at levels that would be inadequate for the next wave of threats he could sense approaching. More concerning was the realization that every technique he had demonstrated, Every capability he had revealed was being analyzed by entities that viewed such information as valuable intelligence for future operations. The Empire's end, he thought as he watched Frieza's forces withdraw to orbital positions, but not the end of the war. If anything, I've just demonstrated capabilities that will attract even more dangerous attention. In the distance, his enhanced senses detected new energy signatures approaching Earth, beings whose power levels suggested they had been waiting for exactly this kind of demonstration before revealing themselves. The battle was won, but the war for reality's survival was entering its most dangerous phase. The aftermath of Frieza's defeat should have brought relief, but instead it brought something far more ominous: silence. Not the peaceful quiet of victory, but the pregnant stillness that preceded catastrophic events. Goku stood on the ravaged beach, his energy reserves depleted from the temporal lock technique, watching as reality itself began to show signs of structural failure. The dimensional barriers are destabilizing, Piccolo observed grimly, his Namekian sensitivity to planetary energy detecting disturbances that transcended simple battle damage. It's as if the fabric of spacetime is developing stress fractures. Because it is, Goku confirmed, his cosmic awareness providing disturbing details about what his recent techniques had inadvertently triggered. The temporal lock didn't just sever our enemies' connections to their origin timelines, it created resonance patterns that are attracting attention from realities that should never intersect with ours. As if summoned by his words, the first tears in reality began to manifest. Not the violent ruptures that had marked previous dimensional breaches, but precise cuts in spacetime that suggested deliberate intervention rather than chaotic accident. Through these openings, figures began to emerge, beings whose energy signatures carried the distinctive resonance of familiar, yet fundamentally altered existence. The first arrival was someone Goku recognized with a mixture of relief and concern, another version of Gohan, but this one wore the distinctive robes of a Supreme Kai and radiated divine authority that spoke of responsibilities undertaken at cosmic levels. His eyes held the wisdom of someone who had been forced to grow beyond normal limitations, but also the sadness of someone who had lost everything he had tried to protect. "Father," this alternate Gohan said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated with divine Kai. Or rather, the version of my father who managed to achieve what mine could not, survival with wisdom intact. Gohan, Goku breathed, though his enhanced senses were already confirming that this was indeed his son from a timeline where circumstances had forced dramatically different development. "What happened in your reality?" "Universal collapse," Gohan replied with the clinical precision of someone reporting on cosmic-level disasters. The battles against increasingly powerful enemies created dimensional instabilities that eventually attracted void entities. By the time we understood the true nature of the threat, it was too late for conventional solutions. "How did you survive?" "By accepting appointment as Supreme Kai when the previous holder was consumed," Gohan explained. Divine status provided protection against dimensional dissolution, but at the cost of watching everything and everyone I had ever known cease to exist. The revelation sent chills through everyone present, but before anyone could respond, more rifts opened in rapid succession. Through them came a procession of figures that represented the full spectrum of possible outcomes for familiar characters when faced with different circumstances. An evil Piccolo emerged from one tier, his energy signature twisted with malevolence that spoke of choosing power over redemption. A Vegeta who had never learned humility followed, his royal arrogance magnified to cosmic proportions by success in conquering entire galactic sectors. Most disturbing of all, a version of Krillin appeared whose gentle nature had been replaced by cold calculation born from watching his friends die repeatedly in battles he was too weak to influence. "Fascinating," the evil Piccolo observed, his voice carrying undertones of sadistic satisfaction. "The nexus point that's been causing dimensional disturbances across multiple realities. And here I thought we were dealing with a simple timeline anomaly." "You know about the convergences?" Master Roshi asked, though his question was directed more at gathering intelligence than seeking explanation. "We know about the entity that's been orchestrating them," the unredeemed Vegeta replied with arrogant certainty. "The being that's been systematically weakening dimensional barriers to create opportunities for feeding on cosmic-level conflicts." But before anyone could ask what that meant, the most significant arrival announced itself through changes that transcended simple dimensional travel. Reality around them didn't just tear, it inverted, creating a zone where normal physics operated in reverse and energy patterns that should stabilize instead created chaos. Through this impossible breach stepped a figure that made Goku's blood turn to liquid nitrogen. It was himself, but wrong in ways that transcended simple physical differences. This alternate Goku moved with predatory grace that spoke of viewing combat as hunting rather than sport. His eyes held the cold intelligence of someone who had learned to derive satisfaction from dominance rather than growth. Most disturbing of all, his energy signature carried traces of absorbed power that suggested he had consumed other beings to enhance his own capabilities. "Well, well," Dark Goku said, his voice carrying familiar cadences twisted into something that sounded like breaking glass. "The famous Reborn anomaly that's been causing such interesting disruptions across the multiverse. Tell me, do you recognize what you could have become?" The philosophical weight of the confrontation was immediate and devastating. This wasn't just about facing a powerful enemy. This was about confronting the path Goku could have taken if he had never learned the value of mercy, never understood the importance of protecting others, never developed beyond the basic Saiyan drive for conquest and domination. "What are you?" Goku asked, though his cosmic awareness was already providing disturbing answers. "I am what happens when a Saiyan achieves ultimate power without the weakness of compassion," Dark Goku replied with predatory satisfaction. "In Timeline Omega Black, I never met companions who taught me to value anything beyond strength. I never learned to hold back in battle, never developed emotional attachments that limited my growth, never accepted the burden of protecting those weaker than myself. And what did that lead to? Universal supremacy," Dark Goku announced with pride that contained galaxies of malice. "I consumed every threat that challenged me, absorbed every technique that interested me, eliminated every being that couldn't contribute to my continued growth. By the time the void entities arrived in my reality, I had become powerful enough to negotiate with them as an equal rather than simply being consumed." The implications were staggering. This version of Goku hadn't just failed to develop wisdom. He had actively chosen power over every other consideration, eventually becoming the kind of entity that cosmic balance existed to prevent. "You're working with the void entities," Goku realized with growing horror. "I am working with forces that understand the true nature of existence," Dark Goku corrected. "Reality is nothing more than accumulated energy waiting to be harvested by beings strong enough to claim it. The void entities represent the ultimate expression of that principle, existence distilled to its most efficient form." Before Goku could respond to this twisted philosophy, the convergence event reached critical mass. Dozens more rifts opened simultaneously, disgorging warriors, villains, and heroes from timelines where different choices had led to different outcomes. The beach outside Kame House became a nexus point where multiple realities intersected, creating a battlefield that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Through one rift came a version of Cell who had successfully absorbed the consciousness of every being on his planet, transforming from perfect android to something that transcended individual identity entirely. Another brought a Frieza who had achieved divine status through methods that involved consuming other deities. Most disturbing of all, several rifts disgorged entities that weren't recognizable as any known species, beings that had been so transformed by their pursuit of power that they no longer qualified as members of their original races. "This is what I was warning you about," the alternate Supreme Kai Gohan said urgently. "The convergence isn't random, it's being orchestrated to gather the most dangerous variants from across the multiverse. Someone wants all of these entities in the same location." "For what purpose?" Vegeta demanded, his royal strategic training allowing him to recognize coordinated operations even when the scope exceeded his previous experience. "To create maximum dimensional instability while demonstrating that conventional power, no matter how great, cannot address threats that exist outside normal reality," Dark Goku replied with satisfaction that suggested intimate knowledge of the plan. "Observe." The sky above them began to show stress patterns that indicated reality itself was approaching its tolerance limits for supporting so many powerful entities simultaneously. But instead of random chaos, the dimensional disturbances were forming geometric patterns that suggested deliberate design. "They're creating a summoning array," Goku realized with growing alarm. "Not just weakening dimensional barriers, but actively opening pathways for something specific to enter our reality." The battles erupted simultaneously across multiple fronts as the various timeline variants began engaging each other with the violence of beings who had been denied proper challenges in their home realities. Evil Piccolo attacked the unredeemed Vegeta with techniques that had been refined through decades of conquest. The absorbed cell entity attempted to consume the divine Frieza variant, creating energy exchanges that warped spacetime around them. But the most significant conflict was the one that hadn't begun yet. The confrontation between Goku and his dark alternate, which would serve as both a battle for survival and a philosophical debate about the true nature of strength. "You're going to face him," Krillin said, recognizing the inevitability in his friend's expression despite the obvious tactical disadvantages. "Even though you're weakened from the temporal lock technique." "I have to," Goku replied quietly. "Not just because he's the most dangerous entity here, but because he represents everything I chose not to become. If I can't prove that wisdom and power can coexist, then everything I've worked for across 2 lifetimes becomes meaningless." The dark Goku's laughter was like cosmic wind through dead galaxies. "How touching, you actually believe your choices matter on a universal scale. Tell me, reborn warrior, how many civilizations died while you held back in battle? How many threats could have been eliminated earlier if you had simply used maximum force from the beginning? And how many friends would I have lost if I had chosen power over everything else?" Goku countered. "How many allies would never have developed if I hadn't given them opportunities to grow? How many enemies became protectors because I showed them there was another way?" "Sentiment," Dark Goku dismissed with contempt. "Individual attachments that limit growth potential and create vulnerabilities that enemies can exploit." The philosophical battle was joined with physical combat as both versions of Goku engaged in a confrontation that transcended simple martial arts. Dark Goku fought with techniques that had been perfected through the systematic elimination of anything that might cause hesitation or restraint. His every movement carried killing intent, refined to cosmic proportions, power applied without consideration for collateral damage or long-term consequences. But Goku's approach was fundamentally different. Weakened by the temporal lock technique, he couldn't match his alternate's raw power output. Instead, he fought with precision born from understanding that true strength came from achieving maximum effect through minimal energy expenditure. Not because he lacked power, but because efficient use of strength left resources available for protecting others. "He's faster than I expected," Goku noted as he barely deflected an attack that would have vaporized several mountain ranges. "But his techniques are all focused on individual combat. He's never learned to fight while simultaneously protecting others." The realization provided strategic opportunities. Dark Goku's every attack was optimized for maximum damage to a single target, but such focus created blind spots that could be exploited by someone willing to accept hits in exchange for positioning advantages. "You fight like you're weak," Dark Goku observed with contempt as Goku used superior technique to redirect rather than block his attacks, always looking for ways to avoid demonstrating your true capabilities. "I fight like I understand that power without purpose is just destruction," Goku replied, using his alternate's momentum to send him crashing through dimensional barriers that transported the impact to empty space rather than allowing it to damage Earth. The battle intensified as other conflicts raged around them. Supreme Kai Gohan was attempting to contain the dimensional disturbances while simultaneously protecting civilians who had been caught in the convergence zone. The unredeemed Vegeta and evil Piccolo were trading attacks that created reality-warping explosions. Most concerning of all, the absorbed cell entity was systematically attempting to consume every other being present, growing stronger with each successful absorption. "You see," Dark Goku called out while trading blows that bent spacetime around them. "This is what your philosophy creates, chaos that could have been prevented if you had simply eliminated threats when they first appeared. And your philosophy would have prevented this by destroying everything worth protecting," Goku countered, his cosmic awareness providing tactical information about the true scope of what was happening. "Look around you. Every entity here represents the endpoint of choosing power over wisdom. They're not just threats to this reality, they're examples of what happens when strength becomes the only value that matters." But even as he spoke, Goku was becoming increasingly aware that conventional combat wasn't going to resolve this crisis. The dimensional disturbances were intensifying with each exchange of energy, and the geometric patterns in the sky were approaching completion. Whatever the convergence was designed to summon was preparing to manifest. "I need more power," he realized, "but accessing my full capabilities while this weakened could destabilize my physical form beyond recovery. Unless..." The solution came to him in a flash of inspiration born from cosmic experience combined with desperate necessity. Instead of trying to access his own power reserves, he would draw strength from the dimensional convergence itself, specifically from the other versions of himself that existed within the nexus point. Genesis Fusion, he focused, reaching out with consciousness that extended beyond individual timeline boundaries. Not just combining power, but temporarily integrating the experiences and capabilities of multiple Goku variants while maintaining core personality integrity. The technique was unprecedented and dangerous beyond rational calculation. Goku was attempting to achieve temporary fusion with alternate versions of himself without using Patara earrings or the fusion dance, relying instead on the dimensional instabilities created by the convergence to allow consciousness overlap that shouldn't be possible. But as the technique began to take effect, he realized the true scope of what he was attempting. This wasn't just about accessing additional power. It was about integrating the accumulated experience and wisdom of every Goku variant that had ever chosen protection over dominance, understanding over conquest, growth over simple strength. The transformation was unlike anything he had experienced in either existence. Instead of simply becoming stronger, he became more complete, retaining his core identity while gaining access to techniques, insights, and strategic understanding that had been developed across multiple realities by versions of himself who had faced different challenges and made different discoveries. When the Genesis Fusion stabilized, Goku stood transformed not in appearance but in fundamental capability. His power levels had increased exponentially, but more importantly, his understanding of how to use that power had been refined through the accumulated wisdom of countless alternates who had all chosen the path of protection over destruction. Impossible, Dark Goku breathed, his enhanced senses detecting power signatures that suggested abilities beyond even his experience. That technique, it's not just fusion. You've somehow achieved integration with probability variants that exist across multiple timeline branches. I've achieved something you could never understand, Goku replied, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated with cosmic balance itself. The combined strength of every version of myself that chose to protect rather than consume, to grow rather than dominate, to understand rather than simply overpower. The final battle between the two Gokus transcended physical combat entirely. It became a conflict between fundamental philosophies made manifest. The dark path of unlimited power, without restraint against the illuminated way of strength, guided by wisdom and tempered by compassion. But as their confrontation reached its climax, both warriors became aware of something that dwarfed their individual conflict in significance. The geometric patterns in the sky had reached completion, and through the dimensional gateway they had created, something vast and hungry was beginning to manifest. The convergence had served its true purpose, not to determine which Goku philosophy was superior, but to create sufficient dimensional chaos for entities that existed outside normal reality to finally break through into a universe where they could feed on existence itself. The real enemy was about to reveal itself, and every being present, heroes and villains alike, was about to discover that their individual conflicts were irrelevant compared to the threat now emerging from the spaces between realities. The convergence of fates had reached its inevitable conclusion, but that conclusion was not victory for any single faction. It was the beginning of a battle that would determine whether reality itself could survive the attention of entities that viewed existence as nothing more than accumulated energy waiting to be consumed. The geometric patterns in the sky completed their impossible mathematics with a sound that existed below hearing, but resonated in the fundamental structure of reality itself. Through the dimensional gateway they had created, something began to manifest that made every previous threat seem like a child's tantrum in comparison. This wasn't a being entering their reality. This was reality being entered by something that existed in the spaces between existence, something for which the concept of being was inadequate and potentially meaningless. Goku, still empowered by the Genesis fusion that had temporarily integrated him with alternate versions of himself across multiple timelines, felt his cosmic awareness recoil from direct contact with the entity. It wasn't just powerful, it was antithetical to the basic principles that allowed consciousness to exist within structured reality. The Void Eater, he breathed, recognition coming not from his memories, but from instinctive terror that transcended individual experience. It's actually here. The entity that emerged from the dimensional gateway defied description, because description required concepts like form, substance, and identity, all of which were fundamentally alien to something that existed by consuming the boundaries between realities. What manifested was less a creature than a living absence, a presence defined by what it negated rather than what it contained. Around them, The various timeline variants who had been fighting moments before found their conflicts, rendered meaningless by proximity to something that viewed their individual power levels as barely distinguishable from background radiation. Evil Piccolo, the unredeemed Vegeta, the absorbed cell entity, all of them instinctively moved away from the manifestation, their enhanced survival instincts recognizing a predator that operated on scales beyond their comprehension. "What is that thing?" the alternate Supreme Kai Gohan demanded, his divine status providing him with cosmic awareness sufficient to recognize the scope of the threat, but not its true nature. "Entropy made conscious," Dark Goku replied, though even his perverted philosophy was shaken by direct contact with something that transcended his understanding of ultimate power. "It exists in the spaces between realities, feeding on dimensional instability and growing stronger whenever timelines intersect or collapse. And every battle we've fought, every technique we've demonstrated, every moment of dimensional chaos we've created, it's all been feeding this thing," Goku realized with horrifying clarity. "We weren't just fighting each other, we were preparing a feast." The Void Eater's attention turned toward the assembled warriors with something that might have been amusement if amusement could exist without the concept of humor. When it spoke, the words bypassed language entirely and resonated directly in their consciousness as concepts too large for normal thought processes. Fascinating. Temporal convergence point achieved through systematic cultivation of dimensional instability. Accumulated chaos energy sufficient for sustained feeding across multiple reality clusters. "Cultivated," Vegeta demanded, his royal strategic mind immediately recognizing the implications. "You're saying this was planned? All conflicts preceding this manifestation were orchestrated to create optimal conditions for dimensional barrier collapse. Every entity present has contributed essential chaos energy through pursuit of individual objectives." The revelation hit everyone simultaneously. The coalition attacks, the timeline convergences, even Dark Goku's philosophy of consuming other beings for power, all of it had been manipulated by an entity that viewed their conflicts as farming operations designed to weaken reality to the point where it could feed directly. "We've been played," Piccolo said with grim understanding. "Every choice we made, every battle we fought, every technique we developed, it was all part of something else's plan." Inaccurate, the Void Eater corrected with something that might have been condescension. Individual choices remained authentic. Manipulation involved creating circumstances where authentic choices would produce required outcomes. "Then end it," Goku said quietly, his voice carrying authority that transcended his physical form. "You have what you came for, dimensional instability, chaos energy, whatever you need to feed. Take it and leave this reality alone." The entity's attention focused on him with intensity that made space-time warp around his position. For the first time since manifesting, the Void Eater seemed to encounter something that didn't fit its expectations. Anomalous energy signature detected. Subject exhibits characteristics incompatible with standard reality framework parameters. Classification, impossible. "I'm someone who was given a second chance to do better," Goku replied simply, "and I'm not going to let you consume everything I've learned to protect." Protection implies attachment to temporary constructs. Realities, timelines, individual consciousnesses, all are transient phenomena in cosmic scale. Consumption merely accelerates inevitable dissolution. "Maybe," Goku acknowledged, "but the temporary things are what give existence meaning. The connections between people, the growth that comes from facing challenges together, the hope that things can get better, those temporary constructs are what make reality worth preserving." The philosophical debate might have continued, but the Void Eater's presence was having increasingly dramatic effects on local space-time. The beach, the ocean, even the air itself were beginning to show signs of dissolution, as the entity's feeding processes activated automatically in response to the dimensional chaos that surrounded it. It's not choosing to consume this reality, Goku realized. It's a force of nature, entropy given consciousness but not necessarily malevolence. It feeds on dimensional instability because that's what it is, not because it chooses to be destructive. The understanding changed everything. This wasn't an enemy to be defeated through superior power. It was a cosmic process that had become unbalanced, consuming realities not out of malice, but because the fundamental structure of existence had become unstable enough to trigger its feeding responses. "Everyone fall back," Goku announced, his Genesis fusion providing him with strategic insights that transcended individual timeline experience. "This isn't a battle. It's a restoration operation. What are you talking about? Dark Goku demanded, though even his perverted confidence was shaken by proximity to something that made his accumulated power seem trivial. I'm talking about fixing a cosmic imbalance instead of just fighting its symptoms, Goku replied, beginning preparations for the most dangerous technique he had ever attempted. The Void Eater exists to consume dimensional instability. Instead of creating more chaos by fighting it, I'm going to give it what it actually needs. Which is perfect stability, Goku said as he began the process of voluntarily dissolving the Genesis fusion. Not the temporary patches we create by defeating individual threats, but fundamental harmony between consciousness and reality that eliminates the dimensional chaos it feeds on. The technique he was preparing wasn't just unprecedented, it was antithetical to every survival instinct he possessed. Instead of fighting the Void Eater or trying to escape its influence, Goku was going to enter the void between realities where it existed naturally and engage with it on its own terms. But first, he had messages to deliver. Krillin, he called to his best friend, his voice carrying warmth that transcended the cosmic scope of their situation. Thank you for showing me that strength isn't just about power. Every time I held back in battle, every moment I chose protection over dominance, I was using wisdom you helped me develop. Goku, what are you, Vegeta? He continued, addressing the Saiyan prince with respectful acknowledgement. Your pride taught me that confidence and determination matter as much as raw ability. Even when we were enemies, you pushed me to grow beyond my limitations. Kakarot, don't. Piccolo, your strategic thinking and willingness to sacrifice yourself for others showed me that true warriors protect what matters most. Master Roshi, your lessons about martial arts being harmony between mind, body, and spirit prepared me for challenges you never could have imagined. The farewells continued, as Goku systematically acknowledged everyone who had contributed to his development across both existences. But his final words were directed toward the alternate versions of himself who were present. To the Supreme Kai Gohan from Timeline Beta-7, your sacrifice to become a guardian deity showed that sometimes protecting others requires accepting responsibilities that transform who we are. To the Dark Goku from Timeline Omega Black, your path demonstrated what I could have become if I had chosen power over every other consideration. Both lessons were necessary for what I have to do now. What you have to do? The alternate Gohan asked, though his divine status was providing him with growing understanding of what Goku was planning. I have to become something that can exist in the spaces between realities without being consumed by them, Goku explained as he began the final phase of his preparation. The Void Eater doesn't feed on chaos because it's malevolent, it feeds because it exists in a state where chaos is the only available energy source, but if I can provide it with perfect stability instead. You'll die, Piccolo said bluntly. My individual consciousness will be transformed, Goku corrected. I'll become part of the cosmic balance that prevents dimensional instability rather than just someone who fights the symptoms of that instability. The Void Eater's attention focused on him with something approaching recognition as it became aware of his intentions. Subject proposes voluntary integration with interdimensional framework, unprecedented in recorded cosmic history. Probability of successful consciousness preservation, minimal. I'm not trying to preserve my consciousness, Goku replied as he took the first step into the void between realities. I'm trying to transform it into something that can serve a purpose larger than individual survival. The transition from normal reality to the spaces between dimensions was unlike anything he had experienced. Not teleportation, not dimensional travel, but conscious dissolution of the boundaries that separated his individual existence from the fundamental processes that governed cosmic balance. In the Void Eater appeared not as a threatening entity, but as a cosmic process that had become unbalanced through exposure to excessive dimensional chaos. It existed to maintain harmony between realities, but the recent convergences and timeline instabilities had overwhelmed its capacity for processing dimensional energy, transforming it from a guardian into a consumer. Integration process initiated, the entity announced, though its communication was now direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact rather than words imposed on reality. Subject consciousness will be dissolved to provide stabilization matrix for interdimensional balance restoration. Not dissolved, Goku corrected as he felt his individual identity beginning to merge with cosmic processes. Transformed, I'm not dying, I'm becoming part of something that ensures other people get to live. The transformation was simultaneously painful and transcendent. Goku felt his memories of both lifetimes becoming integrated with the fundamental structure of reality itself. His experiences protecting others, his understanding of the balance between power and responsibility, his accumulated wisdom about the value of temporary connections, all of it became part of the cosmic framework that maintained stability between dimensions. But instead of being consumed by the process, he discovered that his essential nature was being preserved within the larger structure. The Grand Xana's modifications to his reincarnated soul had included safeguards that allowed him to maintain coherent identity even while serving as a stabilization matrix for multiversal balance. Unprecedented result, the Void Eater observed, though its tone had shifted from predatory hunger to something approaching satisfaction. Subject consciousness maintains integrity while providing required stability. Dimensional chaos consumption no longer necessary. The effect was immediate and profound. The tears in reality began sealing themselves as the cosmic balance restored itself. The timeline variants who had been drawn to Earth through dimensional convergence found their connections to their home realities strengthening, allowing them to return to where they belonged. Most importantly, the fundamental structure of spacetime around Earth stabilized to levels that would prevent future convergence events. But for Goku, the transformation had unexpected consequences. Instead of losing his individual identity, he found himself existing simultaneously as a person and as part of the cosmic balance that protected reality. He could choose to manifest as an individual when circumstances required it, but his essential nature was now integrated with forces that maintained harmony across multiple dimensions. When he returned to normal reality, appearing on the beach where his friends waited with expressions of desperate hope, he discovered that the memories of his previous existence had been transformed rather than lost. He retained the wisdom and emotional growth those experiences had provided, but without the burden of knowing exactly what challenges lay ahead. Goku, Krillin called tentatively, recognizing his friend's appearance but sensing fundamental changes in his energy signature. "It's me," Goku confirmed with a smile that carried the warmth they remembered, but also depths that suggested experiences beyond normal comprehension. "But also more than me. I'm still your friend, still someone who wants to grow stronger and protect the people I care about. But I'm also part of something larger now, something that helps maintain the balance that keeps everyone safe." The implications were staggering. Goku had achieved something unprecedented in cosmic history, voluntary integration with multiversal balance processes while maintaining individual consciousness. He was simultaneously a person and a cosmic force, someone who could live a normal life while serving as a guardian against threats that existed outside normal reality. "What happens now?" Master Roshi asked, his centuries of experience with impossible situations allowing him to focus on practical concerns rather than philosophical implications. "Now Earth gets to continue existing without being a nexus point for dimensional convergences," Goku replied, his cosmic awareness providing information about how his transformation had affected local spacetime. "The timeline instabilities that attracted so much dangerous attention have been resolved. Future threats will be individual problems rather than multiversal crises." "And you?" Vegeta demanded, his royal pride warring with concern for someone he had grudgingly come to respect. "What does this transformation mean for you personally?" "It means I get to face the future with genuine curiosity for the first time in 2 lifetimes," Goku said with joy that transcended the cosmic scope of what he had accomplished. "I retain the wisdom and emotional growth from my previous existence, but without the burden of knowing exactly what's coming. I can train, make friends, have adventures, and protect people, all while being genuinely surprised by what each day brings." The timeline variants who had been drawn to Earth were already beginning to fade as their connections to their home realities reasserted themselves. The Dark Goku cast one final look at his alternate before dissolving back to timeline Omega Black, his expression suggesting that witnessing true wisdom had planted seeds of doubt about his chosen path. The alternate Supreme Kai Gohan approached with divine authority that recognized what Goku had achieved. "The cosmic balance has been restored," he confirmed. "Dimensional barriers are stable across all reality clusters. The threat of void entity incursion has been eliminated for the foreseeable future. Then you can return to your timeline and focus on rebuilding," Goku suggested. "With the multiversal crisis resolved, individual realities can develop according to their own natural patterns." As the various alternates faded back to their home dimensions, normal reality reasserted itself around Earth. The beach returned to its natural state. The ocean resumed its peaceful rhythm. and the sky showed no trace of the cosmic conflicts that had threatened to tear apart the fundamental structure of existence. But the most significant change was in Goku himself. For the first time since his rebirth, he felt truly free, not from responsibility, but from the overwhelming burden of cosmic foreknowledge that had shaped every decision across both lifetimes. "So what do we do now?" Krillin asked with the practical concern of someone who had just witnessed his friend voluntarily transform into a cosmic entity and somehow remain unchanged at a personal level. "We go home," Goku said simply. "We train, we eat, we spend time with people we care about, and we face whatever challenges come next without knowing exactly what they'll be. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I get to experience genuine surprise." "And the next time someone threatens Earth?" Piccolo asked. "We'll handle it the same way we always have," Goku replied with confidence that transcended his transformed nature. "Together, using whatever strength we possess, learning from our mistakes, and growing stronger through the challenges we face." As they walked back toward their normal lives, each person processing the cosmic events they had witnessed in their own way, Goku felt a presence that had become familiar during his time in the void between realities. The Void Eater, now transformed from a force of consumption into a guardian of dimensional stability, maintained a connection to his consciousness that allowed communication across the barriers between realities. Integration successful, the entity observed with something that might have been approval. Subject has achieved unprecedented balance between individual existence and cosmic responsibility. Future dimensional stability probability. Optimal, thank you, Goku replied through their interdimensional connection. "For showing me that some problems can only be solved by accepting transformation rather than fighting for unchanging victory. Wisdom acquired through experience spanning multiple existence cycles. Rare among entities who achieve sufficient power to interact with interdimensional processes. Will I see you again? Presence will remain accessible if circumstances require intervention at cosmic scale. Otherwise, existence will proceed according to natural development patterns." The conversation ended as Goku's attention returned to his immediate surroundings. Friends discussing how to explain the day's events to their families. Master Roshi calculating the reconstruction costs for Kame House. Vegeta muttering about training regimens that could possibly prepare someone for cosmic-level responsibilities. All of it felt wonderfully, perfectly normal. That evening, as Goku sat on Mount Paozu watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded him of better possibilities, Chi-Chi approached with the careful concern of someone who had heard incredible stories but wanted to understand what they meant for their personal relationship. "So," she said, settling beside him with the natural ease of someone whose feelings had remained constant despite cosmic complications, "I heard you saved the entire multiverse today." "I helped fix a problem that was threatening everyone," Goku replied honestly. "But mostly I just learned that true strength comes from understanding when to fight and when to find better solutions." "And what does that mean for us? For the future we talked about building together?" Goku smiled with joy that encompassed both personal happiness and cosmic satisfaction. "It means we get to build that future without me knowing exactly what's going to happen. For the first time since I was reborn, I can make plans and promises without having to worry about cosmic responsibilities getting in the way." "Good," Chi-Chi said, with satisfaction that contained its own depths. "Because I intend to hold you to those promises." As the stars appeared in the darkening sky, each one representing realities that were now stable and safe from interdimensional threats, Goku felt the profound satisfaction of someone who had completed a journey that spanned multiple lifetimes and culminated in genuine new beginnings. His second genesis was complete. The reborn warrior had become something unprecedented, a being who possessed ultimate power but used it in service of wisdom, someone who had achieved cosmic responsibility without losing his essential humanity. A protector who understood that true victory sometimes required accepting transformation rather than simply defeating enemies. But most importantly, he was still Goku, someone who loved training, cherished his friends, protected those who needed protection, and approached each new day with the curiosity and enthusiasm that had driven him across 2 lifetimes. The ultimate enemy had been defeated not through superior force, but through understanding that some battles could only be won by transcending the desire for victory itself. The multiverse was safe, Earth could develop according to its natural patterns, and Goku could finally experience the simple joy of facing an uncertain future with people he cared about. His second genesis had given him everything he had never realized he wanted: the wisdom to use power correctly, the strength to protect what mattered most, and the freedom to discover what came next without the burden of cosmic foreknowledge. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth, new chances to learn and protect and become stronger. But for the first time in 2 lifetimes, Goku didn't know exactly what those challenges would be. And that uncertainty felt like the greatest gift of all. The stars continued their eternal dance across the vast canvas of night, each one a reminder that existence was precious precisely, because it was temporary, meaningful because it was shared, and worth protecting because the connections between conscious beings created something more beautiful and important than any individual power could ever achieve. Goku's second genesis was complete, but his true journey, the journey of discovery and growth and protection and wonder, was just beginning. 6 months later, Goku stood in the familiar training grounds of Kame House, sparring with Krillin under Master Roshi's watchful eye. His movements carried the fluid precision of someone who had touched cosmic forces, but his laughter held the pure joy of someone experiencing genuine challenge and growth. "Not bad," Krillin said with satisfaction as he successfully landed a hit that sent Goku tumbling across the sand. "Your cosmic transformation didn't make you invincible after all." "Good thing too," Goku replied, bouncing back to his feet with undiminished enthusiasm. Being invincible would make training boring. In the distance, Vegeta was approaching with the determined stride of someone who had spent months developing techniques specifically designed to test a cosmically enhanced Saiyan. Behind him, Piccolo carried scrolls that contained advanced training methods developed through extensive study of dimensional balance principles. The challenges ahead were individual rather than multiversal, personal rather than cosmic. Exactly what Goku had hoped for when he chose transformation over simple victory. His second genesis had given him the ultimate gift, the chance to face an uncertain future with wisdom, power used correctly, and friends who understood that true strength came from the connections between people rather than the abilities of any individual. The greatest warrior in multiple realities had finally learned that the greatest battles were the ones fought not for victory, but for the chance to protect everything that made existence worth experiencing. And that lesson would guide him through whatever adventures awaited in the infinite possibilities of tomorrow, the end. And there you have it, the complete journey of a Saiyan who got the ultimate second chance and somehow made it work. What started as a simple, what if scenario turned into something way more complex than I originally planned. We went from a kid trying to hide cosmic power to literally reshaping the fundamental balance of the multiverse. But honestly, that feels right for Dragon Ball. The thing I love most about this story is how it explores the idea that raw power isn't everything. Sure, Goku had all his abilities from day one, but the real challenge was learning when to use them, when to hold back, and when to find completely different solutions to impossible problems. We got to see familiar faces in new contexts, enemies becoming unlikely allies, and ultimately a resolution that wasn't about defeating the biggest bad guy. It was about understanding that some problems require wisdom instead of stronger punches. Plus, we ended up with a Goku who gets to experience genuine surprise again, which feels like the perfect reward for someone who carried the weight of cosmic knowledge for so long. Thanks for joining me on this wild ride through alternate timelines, divine transformations, and interdimensional politics. Sometimes the best victories aren't about who's left standing at the end, they're about creating a world where everyone gets the chance to keep growing. Until next time, keep training hard and remember, true strength isn't about what you can destroy, but what you choose to protect.